All right. Hey, turns out we are on air. Took us 5 minutes, and I had to grab some water. And my Brita pitcher didn't even entirely fill itself up, and so I'm gonna actually have to run to refill itself up. And this is the Gaytriarchy. My guest this week is Chadwick Moore. My regular co-host is Derek Spacepan. Say hi, guys.
Hello, guys.
Up, fam.
So, okay, last week, some of you guys might remember Chadwick was supposed to be around and he did not make it. Now, turns out that he has a, I would say, reasonably good excuse, not like a super reasonably and not like a mid reason. It was like kind of a shitty.
It's a bad excuse. No, I messed up. I apologize. Look, I'm sick. I'm still sick. So if you hear me coughing and sniffling, I'll tell you. But I totally flaked. I was just a gay floozy last week, and
Well, in fairness, it could have been worse. It could have been like over at some guy's house being like, I never want to leave.
No, see, that would have been much nicer. I actually went camping up in upstate New York, which is why I'm still sick, in 10-degree weather. And I mean, I guess it was sort of Brokeback Mountain-y, so maybe that's maybe that gets you some credit.
So
in the chat, Nadame Tefra says Chadwick was in Chicago with some Nigerian brothers.
Wow! Have you seen the breaking news?
Have we seen you both in the same place at the same time?
Yeah, I think Chadwick desperately wishes he was there. Have you seen those guys? Jesus.
Oh my God! Jussie went out for 3 footlongs that night.
So but yeah, we can get to that a little bit more in a bit, but I just wanted to say, did you ever see that movie Now and Then from the 90s with like Christina Ricci, and then her adult version was played by Rosie O'Donnell?
Oh my God, I totally remember the movie posters. I can picture them, but I can't remember what the film was about.
Okay, so I remember every fucking detail of that movie because it was one of the movies that came out on HBO when I was like in middle school, and my dad just kind of like would ignore me and I would just watch movies all day. And so it would, when HBO, and maybe HBO is still like this, it will play the same movie at the same time every day. And so they would play that movie. And there was this really amazing part. Like, this is the funniest part in the world. Everybody should look this up on YouTube. Do a search for Roberta tries to kill. Roberta fakes her own death now and then. And the thing is, Roberta, which is the Christina Ricci character, she was very troubled because her mother had died early in life. And so she decides to like do a high dive off of this tree. And she into the river, and they don't know where she is, and they're like, oh my god, maybe she hurt herself, oh my god. And then she does a float with her face down in the river, and she pretends to be dead. And so they rescue her, and then as they're arguing about who is going to give her CPR, she spits, and she's like, because like, okay, the fat girl's her like real best friend, and the fat girl was like, just get out of the way, I'll do it. And then she spits in her face, and she's like, well, good to know who your real friends are. You two are totally assholes. And Chrissy here, and then Chrissy, the fat girl, punches her in the face. And she's like, don't you ever do that again. And I vaguely wanted to like reenact that to Chadwick because I thought that maybe there was a chance that he like wasn't going to show up, but he did. So here he is.
I know. Hey, I told you I deserve any amount of ridicule and shaming, because I did totally mess her up last week, and I deeply apologize, and I profusely apologize to you privately. So I'm very
No, I'm mainly just I actually really like acting out that part. Like I'm not going to do it again because I mean it's it's one of those things that if you pull it out 3 times in a row as a party trick, people start to hate you by halfway through the second time. But I'm done. Okay, so that being said, there are 2 things that we are obviously definitely going to be discussing. And one of them is just that, okay, so the last video I made, Derek is actually from Minnesota, and I want to just remind everybody that we do not live in Trump's America. We live in wacky intersectional feminist affirmative action as politician hires, like Ilhan Omar, I believe is how you say her name, representative, the congressperson, who, like, she's just completely awful. She's it's like she's illiterate. It's like she has the IQ of an approximate brain damaged person who wasn't good enough for the police force. Like, it's just so embarrassing. And she's all trying to talk about Lindsey Graham being compromised, and nobody can think of what she's talking about besides him potentially being gay. And it's like, oh, surprise, surprise, this, Somali Muslim person who can barely speak English is thinking that's a good idea to start saying. You guys, you get what you elect. So what do you have to say about that, Derek, being from Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, well, Minnesota is overall like very, very you might say woke, particularly if you're like around the Twin Cities. Once you kind of go out towards like greater Minnesota, you get more, the people who are a little bit more conservative. But like a lot of this virtue signally stuff, I mean, it's, we have I think the most like Somalian immigrants. It's like we're like the #1 destination.
Yeah, do you know why that is?
I think more people are becoming aware of that. But yeah, we have like a huge Somali population in Minnesota, and that's kind of part of how she's elected. Is that you have, of course, Somalians who want to be represented, but then you also have all of these like white progressive virtue signalers who just like want just
enable them.
Why is
no exactly?
I went to school in Iowa, and Iowa's not like Minnesota. I mean, it's a purple state for a reason. It's very middle of the road. It could go either way, Democrat, Republican. What is it with Minnesota? Why is Minnesota so woke? It's just one state north.
I'm sorry, why is it what?
Why is it so woke?
I'm not sure. I think it partly has to do with just the big metropolitan area. I mean, because like Iowa doesn't really have cities, right? You have like you have Des Moines, and then you have Dubuque.
Yeah, Des Moines only like 200,000 people or something.
So I guess that might be part of it. I don't know, but like in a lot of ways, Minnesota's kind of like a mini Portland. Like we have like a lot of bike riders. We're like the #1 like bike riding state for no fucking reason. Like it's like so cold. We're like, we're biking anyway.
So like Chicago,
because of Swedes. I think that actually is a huge factor. There's like a huge Scandinavian kind of that's like where the descent of a lot of people like me, for example, like partly like Swedish, Scandinavian, like Danish, and I think that a lot of that comes from that sort of a mentality. I get that's really reaching, but I think that's a factor. I don't know, does that apply to Iowa so much? I'm not really sure how those demographics compare.
Excuse me, I have a cold, as I said earlier. I was a bit like that. You get like, I went to school in Iowa City, which is a college town, and it's definitely like far left, progressive, kind of crunchy granola, bikers everywhere. But the state in general, I think I always think about Iowa as having it's more that sort of Germanic, American Gothic kind of feel to it. It's very sort of like, I think the people there tend to be very level-headed and reasonable, but not like progressives. They're not socialists. They're sort of I think maybe there's more Germanic roots in Iowa than Scandinavian, like in Minnesota.
Huh.
That might be a factor, because that would make a lot of sense. But anyway, somehow, like because of Minnesota, like they've had these policies over so much time, they become kind of more left leaning, and they have this like big safety net. They're big on all that stuff, and I think that makes it a good destination for people like leaving Somalia. So things just turned out that way, that we have like a huge Somalian population, and yeah, it's been kind of an interesting experience with that. Like I've met like Somalian people who are perfectly nice, obviously, but like there have been a lot of issues with like crime and things like that in Minnesota. And like recently we had Valley Fair is like our big amusement park, like our big like Six Flags kind of thing. and it had to close down because of like Somalians fighting people. And now people will claim that's just like a conspiracy. There's some video footage. It's really hard to make out what's going on, but like Laura Loomer was all over it, right? So it was like a whole spectacle like last fall. We had like a similar incident with it was another kind of like Halloween sort of a place. I forgot what one
I remember there was a haunted house and they banned Somali people from going to it.
Yeah, okay. It wasn't that they banned Somali people. It was that like internally they sent out an email to their employees saying like, dude, if any Somalians cause any issues, just like get them out, like zero tolerance, right? And it leaked, so people were freaking out. Like you can't have like a policy that says like if someone of this race does this, then it's like worse. You know what I mean? And like I can see the argument, you know, like it makes sense. But like what people are missing is like. Like do you honestly think a business just like sent that because they're racist against Somalians? It's like they obviously had issues, right? They obviously were like, oh my god, like this is so like we have so many issues like that. This is the point where they had to send out an email like that. Like
yeah, well, and there's a massive. I mean, I think that you can you don't necessarily have to, but I'm not going to make the genetic heritage argument. I'm not interested in that. There is definitely just the tribalistic mechanism behind what happens when a bunch of Muslims are around each other and can easily identify each other as Muslim, which you can visually as the Somali community in the Midwest. So, you know, it's kind of like, oh, so we are in this one group and everybody else is in the out group and we hate them. So problems will happen.
Yeah, do you remember
it's so shitty because it's like a guilt by association kind of thing. Like I get there's many of them who like obviously it sucks, but like fundamentally it's like it's the bad apples ruining it for the other people, and like fundamentally that's where you know it's starting from. Sorry, Chad, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh no. I was just thinking, do you remember that video from a couple years ago of a bunch of Somali kids harassing a gay man? You were watching that in Minnesota?
I don't remember that. No.
Oh, it was like all these kids like screaming, you know, the F word and homo and all these other things at this gay guy, and he was recording it, and they were like harassing him down the street.
I don't remember that either. But by the way, I should acknowledge the super chat. Yosef, aka Ozia Media.
Yosef.
He gave me $10 and he said, ask Chadwick, do you need his sugar baby with bunt dimples and big arms? Asking for a friend. Also, love you, Prince. I appreciate
it. Yosef, anytime. I miss you. When am I going to see you again? I do know Yosef in person. I don't think you've ever met him in person. Have you, Prince?
No.
Hi, Yosef. Good to hear from you.
So yeah, but okay, about this politician, that's what we actually like brought up. What else has she done? Okay, there's the Lindsey Graham thing, and there's the thing that I included in the video that I released at like, I don't know, 3:30 a.m. my time. So about 12 hours ago, maybe a little bit more. And what other things? Oh, she's supposedly anti-Semitic. What is that? I don't actually know what the deal is with her alleged anti-Semitic remarks.
I mean, so she had her tweet, right, saying it's all about the Benjamins. Like she it was a whole bunch of tweets. I haven't read all of the tweets, so I could be missing something that's actually spicy or whatever. But like from what I've seen, it's just that she complains about the Israel lobby and AIPAC, right? And like I really think that the people clutching their pearls over it, like, well, I kind of they're really jumping the shark. They're overplaying their hand. It's like everything she's saying is like really easily verifiable. Like, yeah, there's this massive lobby, and it's really weird because we have all these American politicians that like are supporting this. I don't know. It's a really one-sided relationship. Like I'm kind of with the people who are like, who cares with that stuff, and like it's so like Ramsey Paul did a great video on it, which is like the Republican permission slip, and the whole point is that like basically the Republicans, because she's made statements that you can twist into anti-Semitism, now they're like, oh great, we get to go after the Muslim chick, right? Like they want to go after her, right? But they know they can't. But now that she's said this, like, oh great, we got our permission, but let's go in now, right? And it's like totally transparent and hypocritical. So that's one thing I'll say for her. Like, I'm glad that she's like, she's kind of like a bizarro Trump in that way, just like blowing shit up on Twitter. It's just like really entertaining. I just wish every politician did that. So I'll give her credit where it's due. She married her own brother. That's another thing.
What?
Well, that's the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, Derek, I'm kind of with you on what you just said about her. I mean, unpopular opinion. I'm super pro-Israel. I always have been. But I don't think criticizing Israeli policy is necessarily anti-Semitic. And it's very unpopular among conservatives to say that, and me being pro-Israel. But I totally agree with you. It's a little disingenuous and with jumping the shark, as you said, pouncing on her. Yeah, I mean, I think she's an idiot. I think she's awful. I think she is definitely pro-Sharia. But the whole marrying her brother thing. So why can't we have I've seen all the evidence and reports on this. Why is there not definitive proof? I don't understand. Like, what would it take just to prove it? And then she committed a crime, right? If true.
Well, you mean to prove her anti-Semitism?
No, marrying her brother.
Oh, marrying her brother. Yeah, well, I just haven't looked into it, so I'm not really sure. But is that true?
I don't know. I mean, everyone seems to say it's true. I think Laura Loomer was the first one to break it. I just saw Jack.
That's enough for me. That's enough for me. If Laura Loomer says it, that's my religion.
Oh, bless her. Yeah, I hear you on that. Well, yeah. Apparently, I mean, it's very complicated. Jack Posobiec on OWN on One American News just had a big report on it that I watched. But it's very complicated because she was. I don't quite understand it. I'm sorry, but she was apparently like in like a non-legal marriage with someone. Like she called it like a religious marriage, and then married her brother to get in here. I don't quite understand. Prince, do you know more?
No, this is actually the first I'm hearing about this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I know. I didn't like compile a bunch of notes about her. I largely really only started being interested in her until I saw the video footage of her just making an utter fool of herself with that, guy who was involved in the Iran-Contra thing. And it was just like, okay, you're a crazy person. And just the way she was so smug, like she's like, okay, I know I'm doing something wrong, but I'm going to get away with it. It's awesome. It just made me angry. Now I want to know more is the thing.
Yeah, she's incredibly smug, and you saw those videos where she was being confronted about her comments about AIPAC, and also her attacks on Abrams, the new envoy. Is he the envoy to Venezuela?
Yeah, that's the who was involved in Iran. Or I don't even think that's a fair representation that I just made. I don't think he was potentially even involved in Iran-Contra. The only thing he was found guilty of was withholding information to Congress, which maybe just meant that he knew something about somebody who was involved and didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, well, one thing that caught my eye this week is she is this huge proponent of a bill to let transgender women, so people who are biologically male, compete in female weightlifting. And she's a big proponent of this.
That's a rather odd, a rather odd hill to defend.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I saw Tucker Carlson this week did his segment on it, and kudos to him. It was really funny. He was just like, so you're going on this like transgender, intersectional, whatever. Does your mosque perform gay marriages? Like, would your Muslim bakery do a gay wedding cake?
Mm. And she says, that was not the question. That was not the question. I am reclaiming my okay. She didn't actually say I'm reclaiming my time, but she said, I reserve the right to my time. Thank you. It's like, okay, don't try to rip off Maxine Waters. That's just embarrassing. Anyhow, okay.
It totally reminded me of, because like I have a lot of experience with like high school debate, college, like undergraduate mock trial, right? That's sort of like fake sort of rhetorical, like when people are like practicing those kinds of things, right? And like that whole clip just like reeked of those just super smug little tactics that like high schoolers and like undergraduates try to use in those kind of situations. Like when they're doing the mock trial where they're like crossing a fake witness, they'll be like, directing you back to my question, right? Like shit like that. And it's like, it just, parts of my brain are just like so just primed to get triggered by that, just that smug stuff. And
Yeah. Well, then they started rewarding people for that behavior, especially, unfortunately, if they were, what's the best word? Statistically underperforming minorities. So if they were not white or Asian, these people, like, now I don't want to say that this was an entirely widespread phenomenon, because all the people I know are in super far leftist bubbles. You know, the San Francisco Bay Area, Seattle, New York City. There's lots of far leftism in those places. But then there was also that debate team that was the champions, and it was literally only tactics like that. They never said anything with any merit. They're just blathering on and on, like, well, and this history of oppression, and I've been oppressed my whole life, and so this man who's arguing against me, he doesn't know what I'm saying, and it was just like, whoa, this is absolutely insane. But somehow those people were the champions.
No, yeah, you have no idea how bad it's gotten. So first of all, their style of speaking, like that's pretty common among debate, right? But like there, so many of them are all in on like social justice stuff, and they have all these like terms for it. They're like, oh, I'm gonna go Afro pessimism on neg, right? And it's like so like the SJWs have infected the coaching of it and have created this culture so strongly. Like it's so insane. I went to a tournament where there was a debate, right? And one of the kids had a super funny constructive he made, and it was all about like patriarchy and penises and stuff. And it was like the funniest freaking, God, what was the topic? I forgot I can't even remember what the resolution is. So many people made like feminist. Oh, it was a gun control thing. It was a gun control. So you had all these like little tiny white girls running on negative that like you can't have gun control because women need to have guns to defend themselves, right? And then you'd have like tiny little white girls on the other side of it arguing about like systems of violence and things like that, and how like gun promotes toxic masculinity. And like he had a one like that, and I thought it was really hilarious. And like this other kid, he was so offended by like the other kid's speech that he just like shut down and refused to debate and basically shamed the other kid into conceding. And I was judging it. So I was sitting there, I was like, you know, you don't have to concede. Like if he's not going to debate, like you can take the win. And I don't know how to deal with it really. Like it was like such an awkward thing. And then later in the hallway, I found a note on a chair that said, "Kill your local rapist." Right? Like these kids are like totally radicalized.
What
and, like,
oh
my God. Picture of it. I know. And I'm just sitting there, these people are fucking crazy. Like this is so ridiculous. And like, yeah, it's gotten really, really bad. And they literally so there's standard things you do before a debate that are like semi-scripted, where you ask them like, oh, can I have a copy of your case, right, so that I can read it also. And then oh, do you prefer keeping time? What do they do? Those stupid things. And then a new one is, do you have preferred pronouns? Mine are he, him, he, right? Like literally they ask the pronouns, and like And I talked to my former coach about it. I was like, dude, like debate got really weird. Like what happened? And he's like, yeah, I've been kind of floating the idea of when they do this dumb crap where they ask each other for their pronouns at the beginning of the debate, to just like say that I get offended as non-binary and then refuse to judge, just to see if like that'll expose it for like the self-centered kind of thing it is, right? Because they're not going to go through with it if it means the judge won't do it. And I'm like, yeah, that's what the judges should do. The judges should totally like make a fake stink of it and pretend to be offended over it in order to shut down the debates over these kids being idiots. And like, but of course it's their own, coaches who are also judges.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Well, and not even just the coaches. There's always some sort of creepy administrator that's on it that will actively penalize school staff for not going along with the social justice rules. There was all sorts of that going on at Evergreen, for example. Like it was not just Naima Lowe who was that one problem professor who was, completely crazy. And it was not just that one student. What was his name? The one with the pink in his hair, Jamil, I think was his name, who is also extremely insane. But they had he had a bunch of accomplices who were mostly white girls, and then there was a black student population that was also getting riled up. And then there was also a whole bunch of accomplices who were administrators that were all collaborating with each other to persecute anybody that wasn't getting in line with basically their honestly socially terroristic demands. And I imagine that it works like that with debate. And that kind of makes sense to me because, of course, Obama did literally legalize the usage of propaganda on the American people. Staff, administrators at schools have grown to outweigh the amount of teachers in recent years, over the past 8 years, 10 years or so. That is when that really happened. And all this social justice stuff started being crammed down everybody's throat at both college, high school, and sometimes even middle school. And so it seems like there's probably is some sort of level of collaboration. And I can imagine that such people would set their sights on debate departments because it would people would be trained to do that crazy emotional manipulation, cry bully tactics. And they would hone their skills on how best to manipulate whatever person they're trying to manipulate at that time, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, it's like targeted, just like tech against people based on their identity. It's ugh.
Yeah. So somehow we were talking about Omar, but we don't need to talk about her anymore. Now I know how we're gonna get Chadwick to talk. So we're gonna change the subject to Jussie Juicy Fruit Smollet.
Juicy Smollet. Have you seen the breaking news? This is just about 20 minutes ago.
Okay, by the way, I'm going to mute myself for a second because I have to piss. I'm going to turn on my speakers. I will be able to hear. So
okay. All right. So 20 minutes ago, I just retweeted Rafer Weigel. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing his name. He's a local Chicago reporter for Fox News, for the local Fox News affiliate. He's one of the three sources in Chicago, one of the three real journalists in Chicago, who has been incredible following the Jussie Smollett case. So just about 20 minutes ago, he tweeted, breaking, 2 Chicago police detective sources tell Fox 32 News the brothers arrested and released in the Jussie Smollett case told detectives they were paid by the Empire actor to orchestrate the attack. Detectives also have a receipt for the rope found on Smollett's neck showing that the brothers bought it. Wow. All right. I called this 2 seconds after the story broke, which was, I believe, almost 2 weeks ago. I said, this is fucking fake. Nothing about this story makes sense. I did not predict this. If this is true, if what he's reporting is true, I had sort of assumed it was a drug deal gone bad or a grinder hookup gone bad or something. It looks like now what's happening is that Jussie orchestrated the whole thing. We had another local Fox reporter, not Fox, local Chicago reporter just a couple of days ago who said that sources had told him that Jussie was being written out of the show, out of Empire, and this was why he staged the hate crime, I guess to drum up support and attention and to keep his job. So there's so much to unpack with this story. It is so incredible. It's like porn. This is like heaven right now.
For the record, everybody who is watching, if you have not hit the like button, I think that we could get a few more viewers. So please hit that like button. And I am watching the chat go by. I'm not necessarily reading all of it, but if you send me a super chat, I will read it out loud. So back to this case. You thought it was going to be a drug deal.
Well, it just seems so. I didn't definitively say that. I just said there are 10 million scenarios that are more likely than what Smollett was alleging, and I sort of joked like, "Oh, no, it sounds like maybe a drug deal gone bad, or maybe a grinder hookup gone bad." Not definitively say it, but that seemed way more likely. And there were, I mean, you can think of 20 scenarios that were more likely than what he said. What's so funny is I remember I woke up that morning and it was a first thing on my news feed. It was a story, and after the first sentence, I was like, wait, none of this makes sense. Like, first of all, the first sentence of the news report I read had the the MAGA hat wearing white supremacist perpetrators shouting MAGA country, and I was like, wait. My first thought was, okay, no, that makes no sense. Like, literally, Chicago is Obama country. And I'm like, where was he? What neighborhood was this? And what was the weather last night in Chicago? And I googled it. It was -20 at 2 a.m. with the polar vortex that the city had. And I know the neighborhood where Jussie lives or was staying. I'd seen that neighborhood before, Streeterville. It is a ghost town. There's after 6 o'clock, the whole neighborhood shuts down. There's nothing there. It's downtown. It's very wealthy, but it's not a heavily trafficked neighborhood. Nothing made sense from the get-go. What shocked me was how everyone jumped on this. You've had so many politicians, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker.
Can you do me a favor and call her Kamala Hairspray every time you say her name out loud?
Kamala Hairspray. I saw your video about Kamala Hairspray, actually. That was very good. Because she's a Valley girl. You're right. She does that thing. You also did a video on this. She does that thing where she does like black speak or like down home speak like Obama does, but she's a total like wealthy Valley girl from
yeah. Well, that was in the video. So sorry, but you're talking about Jussie, and you mentioned Kamala Hairspray's commentary or something.
Yeah, so she jumped on it. Cory Booker, I believe Hillary Clinton, everyone, all the Democrats, of course, jumped on this. Maxine Waters, all of them. It's just so mind blowing. It's so mind blowing how. And with the media jumping on it too, and you have to wonder, let's talk about the media for a second. How they ran with it immediately. You have to wonder, it's one of those like existential questions I grapple with. Is media just plain stupid, or are they as evilly, as maliciously biased as we think? Personally, I think they're just stupid. But it's like you look at
two things can be true at once.
Yeah, this is true. It could be. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. But just like I'm a journalist, and like just one even if I weren't politically skewed to one side, just one sentence in, you'd be like, wait, nothing about this makes sense. Why would you just regurgitate it? Why would you just report it as fact when any rational person, I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, could see that nothing made sense in this story?
I knew it had to be orchestrated the second I saw his little manager giving his heart-wrenching speech for the news. And it was like, Jussie, you are my son.
Oh, yeah.
And neither you nor anybody deserves to have a noose put around his neck. And it's like, oh, shut up. Like,
that was his manager. Was that the
or the show creator?
Yeah, the show creator. Yeah, that guy.
The guy who Jussie clearly blew to get the fucking.
I mean, let's talk about it, right?
God, he must feel so stupid though now that they have to like write about it the show. They're just like, God, that like blew over so bad. My favorite thing about it is just the sandwich, because I didn't even expect that he'd go to the lengths of trying to stage anything, right? Because you had all this evidence about the cameras that said like, well, hey, we have like literally all but 1 minute of your entire journey home on camera, and it looks like nothing happened, right? So I'm sitting there like I really feel like he just like went into an alleyway, stood there, like that was my thoughts. Like he just stood there and like counted to 60 or whatever, and then said, okay, this is good, and then just like walked back and then said, oh, I'll make this whole thing up now. So like the fact that there's even people involved that he paid to like stage a fake attack that could have even happened is like credit to him. Like it's actually less fake than I thought it was. But like, why would you do all this and then not give them your sandwich? Kept the sandwich. Why did the fucker keep the sandwich? Like he's just,
yeah,
he's just that hungry. He's just like, oh, well, we bought the robe, we bought the bleach, but
yeah, that was one of the big breaking developments was he's on camera walking back into his building holding the goddamn sandwich. Who does that? I saw someone on YouTube said this to me on Twitter. I'm sorry, I wish I could remember his name, but he walked from Jesse's apartment to the subway and filmed it and counted all the cameras. There was like 30 cameras. And he just pointed all of them out as he was walking. It's incredible. I did not predict that it was orchestrated to this level. If that's true, that is really something that is incredible. And I think you're right, Derek. It takes a lot of balls, kind of respect if you have the balls to do this and then go on Good Morning America and fake cry and double down on this. You know, he also this was a couple days ago, right? The day before the Good Morning America interview. I noticed that he was. I was reading news reports, and he had spokespersons from this firm, Sunshine Sachs, which is the same firm that it's a damage control firm in Hollywood that Harvey Weinstein employed. So the minute I saw that, I was like, "Oh, all right, we got it. It's going down."
Yeah, absolutely. That yeah, it's pretty absurd. Okay, so here's my activated almonds thinking about it. Other layers. What I find interesting is that well, for one, have you ever watched that show Empire?
I watched the first season. I think I liked it. I liked the first season. But that was it.
It was not. It was not SJW like at all. Not at all. It was pretty entertaining. Now I think I watched maybe like 3 or 4 episodes into the second season, and I was like, okay, this is like Black Melrose Place. Like I don't really need to watch this anymore. But I liked the first season. I thought it was pretty good. But Melrose Place got boring. So the thing is, though, is that this is a Fox show. And I did not get, Jussie himself was kind of a SJW-ish character, but not entirely. He was trying to like act like a badass and throw somebody off the balcony for not paying his ass or some shit. I don't remember exactly what it was, but like that was a thing.
He's even in the first season because
yes,
I don't remember him at all in the show.
He was the K guy, and he tried to impress his dad when he was a little kid by dressing up in his mom's clothes when he was probably like 6. and the dad took him outside and put him in the trash can, and then the mom Cookie was like gonna fight the dad over it. Like she was like daring him to hit her. Like she was like, "What you gonna do? Hit me? I wish you would. I wish you would."
Cookie, right? That's the character. She's the most memorable character.
She carried that show. She totally carried that show.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Out of all of the major networks, which one is Empire on?
It's on Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
apparently, Phil's saying it's HBO.
No.
Oh,
it was on fucking Fox.
Yeah, it was on Fox.
Unless they moved it to HBO when it was dying, but that makes no sense.
No, sorry, I get all my information from Laura Loomer and live chats.
So it's weird that it's Fox. And okay, if you're gonna orchestrate a hate crime hoax, could you possibly have done any worse of a job of it? Like, it's like they were wanting to get caught.
Yeah.
Now, who is that going to look bad on, and who's that going to look good on? Well, it's going to look bad on mainstream media, Democrats who are going to run with it, and it's ultimately going to overall remind people that no, Trump supporters actually definitely don't hate Black people, and they definitely don't hate gay guys. Duh.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I think the whole thing is just so like, just to think like everybody hates me and they want to do this stuff. It's like, probably the worst like anti-Black or anti-gay prejudice you're going to find is mostly going to be people who are like, I just don't want to deal with you or associate with you, Like this whole idea of like, oh, they're going to seek me out and they're going to put a noose around my neck and pour bleach on me, right? It's just like, no, like what's considered what meets the bar for like prejudice these days is them being like, oh, I just don't want to deal with you. I don't want to like interact with you. I want to like go do my own thing over here.
Or no, or they will sometimes, occasionally, though usually only if things aren't going well, they will talk a bunch of smack in Call of Duty or Overwatch if you are randomly paired up with somebody as a teammate. And I have heard racist things, blatantly racist. Like, we started losing and the white guy was trying to blame the guy that sounded like he was black and started seriously calling him a porch monkey and stuff. And I have been called the F word numerous times, but that is as bad as it ever gets. And, you know, when you're paired with randoms to play video games with, things like that happen because it's very different than public restaurants or something, you know?
And if you're paired with PewDiePie, you might hear the N word.
Well, I think you're right. If you were going to orchestrate a hate crime, how stupid are you? Do you guys remember the letter that was sent to him, right?
Oh yeah, and like cut out writing.
And cut out writing. First of all, who does that? No one. This is
yeah, and it says written by a single white male.
Yeah, like cut out magazine letters, and then it said MAGA on the envelope. And then, if you remember the drawing, it was a stick figure with curly hair. So I guess it's supposed to be Jussie, with a noose around his neck, drawn on. And also, this is what's kind of amazing too: is the stick figure had a cut under his eye. And if you remember the photos of Jussie from the hospital, turns out he didn't go to the hospital. He admitted he didn't go to the hospital. He like posted some selfies where he had like a scratch under his eye. What? I mean, this is so wild.
And on the picture with this stick figure, I believe that they filled in the color of Jussie's skin with brown glitter.
Oh my god. I didn't know that.
No, I made that up. But wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah, that'd be really cute, actually. Maybe there was a gay guy who did it. Jussie art directed the letter, and that glitter on my skin.
I posted a piece of artwork in my Discord that's like, it's like a serious like cartoon like rendition of it, right? And like just seeing it is like, how could you believe this story? It's so hysterically like over the top. So like you look at it and you're like, is this a Poe? Like someone make this to make fun of it? And it's like, no, like they legitimately are like.
Well, and how stupid do you have to be? Because the initial reports were they shouted, "Hey, it's that Empire F word,"
and people were like,
"Country." Oh, yeah.
White. Everyone was like,
Empire.
Who?
Who? Yeah, it was like, huh? Who?
Oh, Empire's still on the air? Huh? What?
You know what? Let's be real. I think that was the real hate crime. Is hate crime against like E-list celebrities.
I think the real hate crime is his parents named him Jussie.
Oh Jesus, right?
yeah. They should have spelled it with like is there any other letters that can be replaced with
some soft C?
Yeah, a soft C, or maybe like a C with an accent aigu or some French crap, you know, like
or some hyphens, you know.
Oh my god, it could be
names.
JUCOIS just one. It would be pronounced Jussie.
Yeah, you know, you'd be more likely to see it JUH-C, Jussie.
Maybe it's pronounced.
yeah. By the way, I got a super chat. $9.99 from Isan Dulin says, just want to help you keep the lights on. Thank you very much. You're gonna really I swear to God, everybody who enjoys my channel will be very happy with this project that will be debuting within probably no longer than 2 weeks. Just have a few finishing stages on it, polish it off, and then I'm gonna release it. So
I'm excited. You've been teasing this.
But you actually know things about it, so we are going to change the subject because sorry. Jussie, any more things to say about?
Oh, there's so much to say. I almost have fatigue talking about this because it's just been like, oh, okay. Well, now it's like, okay, we won. It's everything we wanted.
Yeah.
What's left?
Yeah, because okay.
I just had sex. I'm just like, all right, get out of my bed.
Well, okay. I'm continually amazed by just how incredibly dark, royal, navy, blue, the pills that so many people that I know wake up and eat like cereal.
Yeah.
Like the levels of blue pill, just complete and utter alternate realities that they live in is completely absurd. And so for example, the Mueller investigation is pretty much over. They have already been scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of people that they were giving subpoenas to for a while. And they don't have anybody else even like on the list. They're like, okay, I think that we're done. And so the Senate reviewed everything they have and they're like, yeah, we don't have anything. And I'm like, does this make a difference? And then they're like, no, Mueller didn't say he failed yet. He's saving the best for last. And it's like,
oh my God,
you just actually don't understand what you're talking about at all. Like the only way the world makes sense to you is if Russia did this. And even if he's found completely innocent, you will find a way to believe that Trump orchestrated a cover-up. Like that's clearly what they're going to do, because that's how these people actually think. And so I've seen people, just a few days ago posting about Jussie Smollett's hate crime. Like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. He's so great. I liked him so much. And it's like, I tell them that it was fake. Now, granted, in that case, the guy didn't say anything at all. He might have actually even deleted his post for all I know. But I have had numerous times when people say, well, what about all the hate crimes that have happened because of Trump? And I'm like, oh, you mean all the hate crime hoaxes? And then they're like, how absolutely dare you say that, you Trump apologist? You're a horrible person. You're crazy. You should go to a mental hospital. You're deranged that you would even think that these are hoaxes. You must have had a drug relapse because 7 years ago you used to do drugs. I remember. You must be on a speed binge. You should go to the mental hospital. You're insane. You're insane. And it's like, do you want to look at the news stories about how many of them have been reported upon as fake? No, you're insane. I'm blocking you. And like, that's how these people actually act. And so like, I mean, I'm going to be surprised if they find out that this was definitely a hoax, like a high profile celebrity-ish hoax that everybody heard about, because that's never happened before. But I mean, does anybody have any fan fiction about what type of explanation they're going to come up with to somehow explain it away? Because I feel like they're going to be able to do it.
Well, the whole orchestrated event was fan fiction, right?
Yeah.
Look at what a safe, wonderful, I hate this word, but tolerant, I hate that word, country we live in, where you have to hire Nigerians to fake a hate crime.
You saw those guys. They weren't only here for the hate crime.
Woo! I did see them. I mean, hey, I can't blame Jussie. I'd pay those guys to beat me up too. I texted that to Milo the other day. We were laughing about it. He and I have been like following each other every update on this story.
I think that what they'll say though is that this was the reason that people were so ready to believe it is a sign that we have all been mentally terrorized by the limitless bigotry coming directly from the White House, which has damaged our psyches so much that we were willing to believe this. And so actually, Trump is still the bad guy here.
Yeah, that's the other day I'd asked people, what's when this Jussie thing turns out to be a hoax, what's the left-wing narrative going to be? What are the think pieces going to say? And I guarantee it, we're going to see this. We'll see Huffington Post, Slate, God knows who else, BuzzFeed saying, Jesse's internalized trauma, forced him to blah blah blah. In Trump's America, he may have lied, but he started a real conversation on hate, blah blah blah. That's what you're gonna see,
Yeah. No, that's what happened with the fake ass story of the little girl crying by the pickup truck on the cover of Time magazine.
Yep.
And it was entirely fake. Except for the fact that she was an immigrant, that everything else was like untrue. She was an illegal immigrant and she was crying, but every bit of the story that she was supposed to illustrate was not true. She was not put into some concentration camp. She was not even technically separated from her mother. Her father was against her coming, like they weren't, it was not even a shared decision from the parents to try to start a better life. The father didn't even want her to go. And so all these different things didn't add up, but Time magazine published a correction, but then said, but we stand by the principles of the story, because even though we didn't get an image of what we wanted and we had to use a fake one, a true image of what we wanted to find probably is out there somewhere, and if we could have found it, we would have published it, because it really is happening or something.
Incredible.
And do you want to know what's tragic about it? There are people, maybe my own mother, who actually were trying to be like, no, Prince, they didn't publish a retraction. They published a correction, but said that they still believe in the spirit. And it's like, and
okay, thanks, Philip DeFranco.
What's that?
Said, okay, thanks, Philip DeFranco.
Yeah, what does believing in the spirit mean?
Or something. It's something. Yeah, they still believe in the ish. It was
the narrative.
Yeah. And it's like, and that's a good response to you. Like that's you find that the least bit, like that's the most awful thing they could have done to me, is trying to double down and say it doesn't matter that we lied because reasons. Like that's the least acceptable thing to me that they can do. But according to, I mean, bless my mom's heart, she is aging. She's pretty old at this point, and I think people do get a little bit more agreeable and kind of gullible about certain things. So but it's just amazing that people take advantage of that so readily.
It's incredible. I mean, I'm jealous of people who aren't red-pilled, who just stop all this up, because once you see how corrupt and how awful and how evil all this is, especially the media, it leaves me speechless. Every day it leaves me speechless.
Well, technically, no, it doesn't for me, but I know what you mean, though. I know it is very depressing. It feels like you are constantly being backed against a brick wall by a garbage truck, and it hasn't even unloaded yet on you. But at the same time, I also remember living in the complete and utter confusion of being randomly subjected to these things, where like I thought everything was going great in 2012. I had a ton of black friends. I was making music with different black people in my bands, and I would go to after parties, and I'd be like the one or two white guys there, and it would be like 15 black people, and we'd all be having fun. And then all of a sudden in 2012, Trayvon Martin gets killed, and Obama has to start talking about how he'd be his son or some crap, and all my black friends are like, microaggressions. Well, and it was like, what? And I didn't understand it at the time. I was like, are you guys fucking for real? Like, I'm the white guy that you like, right? And they're like, just because you think that you have a few black friends that we like you, it's like, I'm pretty sure I was like the only white guy there. So that would mean that you liked me, right? I could have, and it was just like they were manipulated. They were manipulated.
Yeah, totally. But that's not one thing I thought was incredible with so I get into Black Twitter a lot. Like I've been attacked by Black Twitter a lot, and it's always like, and when I say Black Twitter, I'm not talking about like social justice Twitter. I mean, there's like a legit like Black Twitter. And
a lot of memes and stuff on there.
Yeah. And so, like, there's a couple times I've been on Tucker Carlson and I've said something and then like Black Twitter attacks me, but it's always like it's my favorite kind of attack because it's like it's hilarious and it's fun and it's like feisty. Whereas if you're attacked by like white liberal today, it's like, yeah, you're just a self-hating gay and you're racist. And Black
I never,
no, this motherfucker did not just say this. And you're like, great. But what's amazing is because I've been tweeting about Jussie since Smollet since day one. And Black Twitter has been picking up my tweets and sharing it. And since day one, when these tweets started going viral on Black Twitter, they are all like, "Oh, I knew this N-word was lying." Blah blah. Like,
yeah. No, there's so many YouTubers. There's so many Black guys that are on YouTube that are all like, "Jussie, he just keeps running his mouth. Look at this shit."
Oh,
like,
yeah, they're not conservatives or Republicans. I mean, who knows?
Some of them are, but yeah, no. Overall, I think it's just.
Mostly Democrat voters is what I'm seeing.
Overall, I think what it really is like they know somebody from their own general cultural demographic who's lying. Like they know it when they see it. Like
nobody can smell bullshit like a Black American.
Yeah, or like a gay guy can tell when another gay guy is lying pretty well, and girls can do that. Like females know when another female is making some shit up. Like they're like, oh please, that didn't happen to her.
Exactly. Yep.
Unless it's themselves.
or unless they have made shit up in the past, and then they will fight to the bitter end to defend her fake story because they don't want everybody else to find out that she faked the story as well. That's what feminism is. But by the way, Quantum Football gave me $5. And says, Brandon Straka just moved to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's district.
Oh,
if some rumors on social media are true, any chance he can win? #walk away. That's a very complicated question. I don't know the demographics of the area, but I am
obviously.
I'm inclined to say no because Cortez, despite the fact that she's the laughing stock of the mainstream. The progressives, I don't even want to say they have any access to pills because their echo chamber consists of their few hundred friends that they have on Facebook. They don't watch TV, they don't read news, and they're very proud of it. And they go to local shows and I guess like sometimes pass around zines in Portland or something and talk about how cops are all bastards. And they're the type of people who support Alexandria Cortez. And if they voted her into office, they're not going to give up the dream. And they still love her is the thing. I know that type of person. And they think she's great.
I don't know. Well, I don't think her district loves her.
See, I don't know. That is what I don't know.
Well, I think
tell us about it. Tell us, Chadwick.
Well, I'm not the expert, but I think only 4% of her district turned out to vote for her, and she was running unchallenged, I believe. Her big victory was the primary, so she unseated the sort of like the establishment Democrat who was running there. But I think she only won by like 4,000 votes or something by unseating him. I mean, I don't want to talk about Brandon, but her I don't think anyone cares about her. I mean, she is definitely like her district is highly gerrymandered. There's a huge, I believe it includes City Island, her district, which is a huge Republican stronghold in the Bronx, which I'm sure that would surprise many of your listeners to hear there is a Republican stronghold in the Bronx. But it's sort of gerrymandered in there, and of course they didn't vote for her. I'm interested in what you guys think about this. Have you been following the Amazon headquarters news?
I heard that it is deciding not to set up shop in New York due to taxes.
Due to taxes? That's the new narrative?
I think some people were saying that. I think that overall most people don't probably know. The people that are cheering about it are the type of people that just heard, they're ooga booga, Tristan of the gay anti-corporate tribe, ooga booga, Amazon bad, ooga booga, Not in my backyard.
I have to admit, I'm kind of genuinely conflicted on this. It was a sort of classic case of it was the progressives that raised the fit, right? And the corporate Democrats like Andrew Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio were pushing for it, and they made the deal. And but the progressives, the Cortez set, and she was among them, who lashed out against it. And then the last I heard was Amazon had said, okay, there's too much political turmoil here, not for us. Like, sorry, bye, because of the progressives. Now, in a way, I mean, of course, I'm happy about it because it's infighting in the left, which is always amazing. But in a way, I was a little bit on Cortez's side with this because I was thinking, I mean, the neighborhood it was moving into, which is Long Island City, which is a neighborhood in Queens, is number one, like heavily gentrified. It's a sort of soulless corporate bedroom community. If you go to Long Island City, it's nothing but glass towers and whatever. It's right across the river from Manhattan. And but in a way, I was sort of like, okay, 25,000 new jobs, and this new massive I think it was 8 million square foot corporate complex in Long Island City. I was a bit on the side of like, okay, that's just going to make rents even higher. That's going to still put more stress on New York City's already crumbling infrastructure. So yeah, I wasn't totally for it. But I mean, the same way. So I can't necessarily blame the progressives for how they're feeling. But it's still kind of amazing because the neoliberals like Cuomo are pissed off. And I heard a rumor that what was the rumor? I mean, it was reported somewhere that they're thinking about redistricting Cortez's district, kind of to kick her out. Like the Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, they've been saying that about her since before she was technically elected, and I wouldn't be surprised because, I mean, it's as if she's trying to destroy the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Don't let me forget to go back to the Amazon thing because I'm actually from Seattle, so I've heard all about Amazon.
Right.
Yeah, I mean they're an evil sociopathic corporation if there has ever been one in the last 40 years. I mean, Microsoft was pretty bad, but Amazon might be worse. And I mean, just look at Jeff Bezos. He looks like a cross between Lex Luthor and Nosferatu. But like Cortez, we were talking about this last week, and the only time that she sounded vaguely intelligent was when she had that little speech where she went up and she said, "Let's play a game." And she did this thing like she was like, so she was talking about campaign finances and how corporate entities can pay people running with super PACs and how that makes everybody who is potentially getting money compromised. And she actually, did you see that?
No. What is that?
Look up Cortez, let's play a game.
Okay.
Now, clearly, she didn't actually write the whole script herself, but she was pretty good at delivering it, I have to say. But I mean, if she wrote it, she co-wrote it in her own narrative style, and somebody else gave her the substance because, I mean, she's not the sharpest saber in the armory, as I'm liking to say now. And
did you make that up? I've never heard that before.
Yes, I made it up.
Kudos.
And so the thing is that Cortez, she sounded pretty intelligent, but what it sounded like to me was it's basically about trying to get rid of corporate money in elections, right? Trying to get the corporate money out of elections. Mm-hmm. And that's something that the far left very much agrees with because they see that their little beloved homegrown, vaguely socialistic, true believer hero get voted down time and time again. you know?
Yeah.
And so they're hoping to get that to happen. That's something that Bernie.
Oh, you mean like when they stole the election from Bernie?
Yeah, it's something that Bernie Sanders has been talking about for decades, actually.
Yeah.
And so they that's a big talking point from the far left. And everybody kind of agrees with it because ultimately, yeah, I mean, the world would technically be better with if everybody was on an equal playing field in terms of elections, and if that all happened at once, then everybody could restructure things. But the problem with that is that there are actually, the more and more you actually learn about American and global politics in particular, there are other entities to worry about, such as the far leftist radical communist, like post communist, the people, the postmodern people that have been raised as true believers in the sentiments of the United States Communist Party, which is what my video Intersectional Feminism is Communist Particle Board is about, which you guys have watched, and it is an hour long, but there's probably millions and millions of people raised into this mentality that's like this religious assumption, and they're all in the institutions. And so if you were to take the big money out of the politics, there'd be this like massive voting block for fucking communists.
Yeah.
And then the Islamists would find a way to give them money because they've been doing that for decades, and it would be a great way to disarm the current voting system so that the Islamists and the far leftist radicals could get their guys into government. And that's why they're probably doing that.
Well, and look at if their argument is the little guy and the people can't have a voice because of all this corporate domination of politics through money. Explain Donald Trump.
Well, what they'll say is that he's a corporate billionaire. He's the biggest billionaire of them all, and blah, 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 blah.
No, Donald Trump is not, well, which is funny because Donald Trump is not JP Morgan Chase,
Yeah.
Never
nor is he even I just said his name a second ago. The Amazon CEO, Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, I think I saw, so Amazon owns Whole Foods, and there's a Whole Foods.
No way, do they? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a recent thing. And I used to actually go to Whole Foods. I know it's shameful, but
Why would you ever go there?
Because their salad bar is really good.
Says, shut up.
Is that what everyone says?
That's what everyone says.
Okay, well, they make a good point. Have you had it?
No, I've never. I've been in the Whole Foods maybe once in my life, and I seized and I walked out.
Okay, well, it's worth trying. Though there is another market that's within walking distance, like a 10-minute walking distance of the Whole Foods. Is actually about as far away from my house, and it has a smaller salad bar, but some of the items are actually even better, so I am perfectly fine going to the other natural market. Yeah, Trump compared to Bezos, not actually that rich.
Exactly. Yep, and not that. I mean, Trump was never. He was never powerful on that level. I mean, yeah, he was rich. He built things and sold steaks. But he was not. He wasn't powerful in the way that like Hillary Clinton was powerful, for example, even though she wasn't as wealthy.
We don't know how wealthy the Clintons really are because they are. I mean, if anybody's good at hiding money and transporting it through a fucking fake ass charity Clinton Foundation, it's them, and they've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's true. I think what's their reported net worth now? I think is what, 400 million or something. But
yeah, I'm not exactly sure. But
President Trump has lost $1 billion of net worth since he's been in office. He doesn't even take a paycheck.
Wow.
Yeah. Derek, you've been quiet. What's going on in Hong Kong?
No, I mean, I just an agreement in general. I mean, if you want to talk about Hong Kong a little bit, you guys are talking about different like chains in America.
Oh, do that because I have to go to the bathroom anyway.
So yeah, I'm so like used to what's around here now that like we have these places called Bread Talk, right? Which is just like, it's a funny name. It's like a bakery. Like things here have like the funniest names. And I remember I was on the bus and I saw a Bread Talk and I was like, oh, they have Bread Talks here too. And then I realized, Oh wait, no, I've just been here long enough that now I think that the things I've seen before are things that I used to see in America. But damn, I just miss Little Caesars. Like Little Caesars is so underrated. Man, I went to one Little Caesars that had a drive-through window, and like you're not American until you hand someone $5 through a drive-through window, and then they hand an entire pizza through the driver's side window, and you just eat it in the parking lot like the piece of shit you are. I think that's like the American baptism. Like, and so I can't wait to return to America for. I'm going to come back in August for the International Conference on Men's Issues, which was finally announced.
Really? What's that about? I haven't heard about it.
Yeah, it's going to be in Chicago in August, and they're going to do it really differently this year. And yeah, in past years they've just kind of had a series of speeches, and then the speeches are all available online. I went to the first one, and it was really fun to like see all the people. I was like too shy to actually talk to people there, but it was like I actually went there just because Molyneux went, and then I got like I went kind of from purple pill to red pill when I went there and just like met all these people and like saw all their speeches, and it was a really awesome experience. Actually, the reason I found my way to the conference was because I was at the airport and I didn't have a plan for how I was going to find my hotel, and I had never really traveled alone. And then I saw Sage Gerard, he used to like make a lot of YouTube videos under the name of Victor Zen. I recognized him from his YouTube videos, and I was like, "You're Sage Gerard," and he was like, "You must be here for the conference." Like it was like really funny. Like it was like a cartoon. But anyway, this year, in 2019, they're doing the conference again. I think it's the 4th or maybe 5th time they've done it. They're finally bringing it back to America because like they've done it in like the UK a couple of years, once in Australia. So now they're finally bringing it back to America. So I'm gonna stop in Chicago for that weekend and then head up to Minnesota and see my friends and family, and then head back home here. But it's going to be different this year because instead of just having like a series of talks and a series of speakers, they're actually going to have like a larger space where they have different workshops and panels all going on simultaneously, like a proper like conference or convention. And they're going to have a whole bunch that are like half dedicated specifically to men's issues, and then another half dedicated to more like culture war and that sort of thing. So it should be really neat. It's always really fun because it's so fun to be there because like everyone there is someone who's interested in men's issues, and like it's really cool because you get this crazy variety, right? Like I go there and I'm like very ANCAP, and then you have a lot of like more conservative people, you have a lot of even like liberals, like all over the political spectrum gets represented, and it's all people who just like love discovering shit on the internet, and like they'll listen to that crazy kook on the internet, and like they'll get all that information, and like it's such a fun and like much more free and like vibrant way to have conversations. You meet such incredible characters, and you see a lot of like YouTubers. Like I saw like Sandman there and like stuff like that, and like Ramsey Paul. Like to me, that was like my little baby celebrities. Like, oh, like you do have legs. You do have legs. Oh my God, Karen Strawn, like in person, she's so little. Like I was expecting her to be little. Her and Allison, they're shorties, little shorties.
Prince, are you going to that? That sounds right up your street.
So yeah, I mentioned it to him, and I think he's on the fence about it because it's a little bit expensive. I forgot what the tickets are, but yeah, we have Mitch, formerly known as Charming Man, in the chat here. Hi, Mitch. He said he gives that carrot too and can confirm she is really short. But yeah, well, the thing is, I reserved a room, and like the rooms are huge. It's like a double room that has like I think like 2 beds and a pullout or some crap. So obviously, before I go there, I'll hopefully find a couple of people who want to like go halvesies or thirdsies or whatever on the room to cut costs. But anyway, I'm really excited for that. I can't wait to go back to it. I wanted to go so many other years, but I just never quite had the money to drop on it because it is kind of expensive. You're looking at like hundreds of dollars for the ticket alone.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, but like it's for a good cause. I think I really because like there's not really anything else like it, and when you look at all the different issues, to me it just seems like far and away men's issues seem to be like the most important ones. Like if you're going to talk about issues particular to specific groups, and there's a weird thing about men's issues where it's not just that the issues themselves have merit. it's like there's also this. It's like every single force from everywhere is like trying to stop you from talking about it.
Right.
And like you also have to like so many people, for example, they look at the wage gap myth and they're like, oh, haha, that's fake. And then they make fun of feminists and they're content with that. But when you think about it deeper, it's like, well, how is this the case? How did we get here, right? Like there has to be things happening that are causing all of this and causing all this deception. And there has to be a reason it even caught on in the first place. And when you really explore those reasons, like you realize we're dealing with something a lot like deeper and darker within humanity. So that's why I think that, you know, whatever they're asking for, like it's I think it's worth it. Find a way to pay for it. You know, support AVFM, support HBR, support Justice for Men and Boys. You know, even if you have differences with specific men's group, I say we need a pluralistic approach. Like, you know, don't let one disagreement with one group, you know, hold you back. Just support all of them. They're all the message needs to get out there, and different people need to hear the message in different ways from different kinds of people.
Very much agree. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, you can, yeah.
Okay, I have to ask you a question. Has the event officially been declared at this point?
Yeah, it's been officially declared. People are talking about it on Facebook. So
Okay. I was just making sure because Karen told us that we shouldn't maybe talk about it. But okay, cool. Yeah, and I was silenced. My mic had shorted out, and I had to like unplug it for a while and plug it back in about 10
You're like
times.
having a heart attack. What's he doing?
Like, yeah, I was like, no, maybe he's not supposed to. Oh God. Okay.
No,
cool.
they did announce it, but I think because it's still so far out, there's not like a whole lot of people talking about it just yet.
Yeah. Oh,
But Derek, send me a link to that if you could. I'd like to know more about it. Maybe stop by.
Yeah, so it's called the International Conference on Men's Issues.
And I actually am very likely to go. I'm starting to feel it's more likely than not that I will go. Actually,
you should. I mean, men's rights is a big issue for you, right?
Yeah. I would say it's about the general battle between feminism and men's rights, everything such as that, is about a third of my channel.
Yeah. Which is why I love you.
Oh, and you know what? Maybe I was wrong. I had the impression that it was AVFM as like the host. I guess Honey Badger Brigade is like the main host.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like when Karen was talking to us.
I just like I'm so used to assuming it's always AVFM because like they're the ones who like started it and always did it. So, but I mean, obviously they'll all be there. So
she's lovely, that Karen. I listened to your live stream with her from the other week.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm gonna go ahead and post the link in the chat. I think I'm allowed to do that, right? Post links in chats. Boop. There's Justice for Men and Boys. Official declaration of it. When was that? How breaking? That was on the 8th. Yeah, so that was Mike Buchanan. Let us know.
Huh.
I'm gonna be
the best. Sorry, that was just random.
So I know that I had a few more sort of topics that I wanted to actually bring up.
I have a dumb one.
What's up?
So you guys want to talk about celebrities?
No.
Maybe, but
Maybe.
Say it. Just say it.
Oh yeah. Well, the one I
go
found
for
was about Chris Pratt and Ellen Page duking it out.
Oh,
she tweeted about his church being infamously anti-LGBTQ,
which meant that it's anti-gay marriage, meaning I don't care.
Exactly.
I know, right? It's so like,
yeah, it's so awful. I'm sorry. I still don't support gay marriage.
And like, I'm sorry. Yeah. First of all, I simply don't care about gay marriage. I would actually prefer everybody to get civil unions. I made a whole video about this.
Yep.
And I realize that there are simultaneously religious zealots that are trying to make it so that, you know, marriage has more rights than potential civil unions, so that there is like a second-class citizen thing.
Anyone trying to do that, really?
Well, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what people say.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, go on.
But you've heard that before, right?
I've heard that. I don't believe it because every evangelical, hardcore religious person I've ever met or spoken to about the issue just believes that marriage is a religious institution, which I believe as well. and they don't want to take away rights from gay people. They just, they believe the word of the Bible.
Yeah, and like I'm totally fine with that. And I've so many queens have gotten mad at me about this. They will always get mad at me. They were mad at me when I made this argument when I was like 22 in the Bush years. I told them, look, you guys, it's not really that big of a deal what you call it. It matters what it does. It doesn't matter what it's called. And they were like, how absolutely dare you? No compromises in civil rights. I was like, well, okay, so you guys, you understand that there's this war that is very debatable that Bush went into without an exit strategy. And if you want to get him out of office, we could maybe talk about the war. And they're like, you are abandoning your people. And I realized that you're young and that you don't care about marriage, but I do. And it's like, okay, and it was like, that was when I should have coined the phrase gay church lady, but I didn't, but it was
my favorite of your original phrases, by the way.
I mean, that is actually what they sort of, that was their worst issue of my memory. Cause like, at least when they talk about at least when they go into, dramatic fits over the AIDS crisis and talking about how Republicans are evil and never to be trusted. Yeah, and even though it's pretty irrational because they're talking about something that is mainly happened over 30 years ago, and it doesn't necessarily have a bearing over the Republican Party of today, especially not the Trump faction of it, who, Trump. Because Trump was introduced to the Republican Party by Go Proud, which is was a gay organization. And let's face it, look at his wife. Obviously, he knows a bunch of gay men. But
his mentor, Roy Cohn, died of AIDS. He was a gay man.
I didn't even know that part.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, no, Trump is probably obviously totally cool with gays. I mean, there was Milo, there was Peter Thiel, who's actually an extremely brilliant man. Did you ever listen to the Rubin Report episode with Peter Thiel?
I believe I did, yeah.
Yeah, he was actually great. I was like, oh my God, this is a lot of the things that he was saying were things that I had thought, but I had never seen anybody in media articulate at all. And it's like, oh, it makes sense that you'd be this gay billionaire. Okay.
Yeah. Was it during? I believe it was in the State of the Union, but I could be mistaken. It was right around that time that Trump made a big statement about AIDS. He was like, "We're going to end AIDS by 20."
That's one of the things that people have said.
Yeah, he had a huge portion of it on there, which is I'm sorry, I'm still blackpilled on State of the Union. I just thought it was so. I thought maybe he was just greasing things up because he knew he was going to declare a state of emergency on the wall or whatever.
We should get to that. We should get to that. Yeah, but okay. Hold on. Okay, so I remembered what I was saying though. Is that at least when the gay church ladies have their PTSD fits when I'm trying to tell them that the Republicans aren't really that bad. And, I'm technically not even a Republican. I've still never voted for a Republican. I do prefer them to the Democrats, but I mean, that's not a contest. And when I say that, they start freaking out and be like, you don't, how many friends I had to bury, how my lover died. And and they go into that. But at least when they do that, I can empathize with it. It's like, okay, I guess that is a trauma that I can't fully understand. And so I get it. But when they do it about when they were doing it about gay marriage, right after the Iraq war broke out, I just basically was like, oh, shut up, maggot. And I didn't say maggot. I said something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I was never on board. Even back then when I was voting Democrat, I was never on board with it. I never understood it. I was like, why do you guys, what's this about? I don't get it. And comparing it to the AIDS crisis, I think that's smart of you to bring up because they totally compared it to some sort of grand civil rights movement.
Yeah. It was kind of like the difference between ending segregation and Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
exactly. It reminds me. I saw this SJW's Twitter, right?
Hold on. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, right on her bio, she puts, I was born in the wrong time. I should have been part of the civil rights movement. And I'm like, that's the most honest frickin' thing an SJW has ever said, because that's exactly are. You're just LARPing the civil rights movement, and like anything you can latch onto, you're trying to make it like the new civil rights thing. And now it's what, like transgender bathrooms, which is just gonna it's just gonna backfire against, you know, women who are kind of homely, which is the funniest part about it.
There was by the way, I hate that this fucking brought me joy, but it kind of did. And also we should talk about the TERF that got arrested in the UK.
Yeah, definitely.
There was a transgender woman who molested a 10-year-old girl in a public bathroom, I believe, last week. And transgender activists keep saying, no, it never happens. It never happens. And I like have used news things, and they're like, well, that was a private residence, and blah 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 blah. And it's like, okay, we have a recent one. This does happen, and it was just to prove the ridiculous transgender activists wrong. It made me happy, and I realized that that's kind of messed up. But sorry, you were saying something.
I'm sorry to interrupt both of you, but breaking news right now from CNN, of all places: new evidence suggests Jussie Smollet orchestrated attack.
Okay, nice.
Done.
Even CNN.
Victory. CNN's reporting it already.
And of course, they demonetized my video when I said as much, you know, right on the day of it.
Did they?
Well,
really?
yeah, because then it was a conspiracy theory. You had to wait for CNN.
Yeah, you have to wait for CNN to come on board.
The
news.
The real conspiracy theorist channel. They're the real. It's the conspiracy reporting channel.
Exactly.
That's right. We gotta shut you down. Gotta shut down Shane Dodson. Gotta shut them all down. But no, okay. I just wanted to note really quick though on the marriage thing. Like, I've always had that libertarian stance, right? Get the state out of marriage. Which our super woke chat has people being like, yeah, why isn't marriage separate from the state? But here's my one beef with a lot of these the Christians is that, like, they let marriage and government get completely entangled. They didn't take separation of church and state seriously. So, like, that's why the Supreme Court got to make their decision and got to make gay marriage a thing. It's totally Christians' fault. Like, they let their dog shit all over the place. And it's like, okay, well, if that's what you're going to do, then, like, here's what's going to happen. And, like, what I noticed, and it might just be my perception, I argued with Dean Esme about this. He claims I'm totally wrong. He claims that all of the Christians were totally on board with the libertarian stance of separating marriage from state.
Okay, wait, what year was this? Was this within the past 2 years?
That I argued with him? Yeah.
Okay. He legit has like mental problems.
Well, yeah, because this is after he went like very, very Christian. But he claimed that like no, but like I've always done that, and I was like, no, you guys didn't adopt this position until after. Like, you couldn't have your cake and eat it too. Like, that was
okay. So I'm sure you're absolutely right. You don't need to name him by name, and the reason why is because he's well known to be like completely off his rocker. Like, he has been convicted of stealing prescription painkillers from his wife or mother or something and crap like that. Like, he's like,
okay, yeah. So we don't need a. That's all right. I shouldn't.
Yeah, like
I still, you know, don't seem as like a bad guy or anything, but yeah, it's like a complicated thing.
Yeah, it's one of the things that like people like Karen have said, like, you know, like it's not even cool to like pick on that guy at this point. So
right. Well, he was fun to talk to.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the national emergency wall thing.
Yep. Oh, that's a big topic. What are your thoughts?
I haven't really had time to look into it enough. I see. Okay, the only things that I have noticed is that, okay, well, for one, I don't entirely understand the rationale behind it, which is, you know, that's my own fault for not, you know, sifting through all of the propaganda to actually find what is the rationale for it. I know that it's supposed to be that there's more caravans coming, but I need to know precise numbers. So I don't know the argument for. What I know as the argument against is basically, well, you said Mexico would pay for it. That's not how national emergencies work. And the most damning thing I saw against it was that Ann Coulter flipped out on him on Twitter about it. And when now granted, she's pretty moody. But when you're a major Republican president that she has strongly supported, and she starts calling you an idiot publicly, that's very major. Now maybe there is some sort of 4D chess going on that I just don't understand. You guys said something about that, but why don't you?
No, there's no 4D chess. What I think Anne is, I think Anne's just holding him accountable. I think she's obviously. I adore the president. There's no nobody doesn't know that about me, but I think she's holding him accountable. He was asked about Ann Coulter at the press conference yesterday, and he's like, "Oh, she's a nice lady. I don't know what she's saying." Blah, blah. But
like in the Lavelle comedy thing, like, motherfucker, I ain't holding no hand. I'll be down there, DT. Leave me the fuck alone. He's like, why does she have this soup? I don't know what the fuck to say.
Well, one of the funniest things ever was when she started railing against him about the wall and started really haranguing him on it. Recently, he unfollowed her on Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh man, he should have done the opposite. He should have said, "You know what, Anne? You know what? I've fired so many people in my cabinet. Let's just come on down. You do it. That would have been amazing. I wish you could have done that." I really just want her to be president. I want Ann Coulter to be president forever.
No, go ahead, Brent. Sorry.
I want her to be queen. I was under Queen Anne.
I like her as the conspiring behind the scenes influencer of the royal family for the past 30 years that she has been. I think that's kind of like a good role for her. Like she'd be some sort of Game of Thrones character that she'd be on the show a lot, but she would never technically actually be a noble person. She'd just be like somebody that lives in the city of the noble people, and everybody knows her, and she has power for
hand in everything.
I mean, nothing still gets better. This is
like a female Littlefinger. That would be what it would be. You don't know what I'm talking about. You haven't even seen the show.
She would make a great pimp.
Wait, you have?
I'm watching Game of Thrones right now. I just started. I'm on season 5.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. It's so good.
Yeah, I was like, you really should just try. And really, that's what everyone. No, but really, try.
That's I'll wait like 10 years after everyone stops talking about it, and then I'll watch the show.
Like when people are like, you got to get into buffalo wings. Like, I don't know. I took a taste of the sauce, and it was really weird. Like, no, you got to dip it in the blue cheese sauce. It will change your life, and you're scared, but then it does. Okay, but let's keep talking about this wall thing.
Yeah,
I mean, is there much really to be said about it?
I don't know. I mean, $8 billion. What are we getting? Like, I believe it's 200 miles of wall. But now, here's what's most upsetting. This is where I'm sort of with Anne. Is it doesn't look like it's going to be a wall. It's going to be steel slats. I want 30 feet of concrete. I want it to be evil and terrifying. I want it to be menacing
with like Chinese archers on the top walking around.
I want
no, it's rooftop Koreans.
Yeah. Catapults. I want it to be so damn evil looking and menacing, but now it looks like we're getting slats. Yeah.
I want a moat. I want a moat with laser sharks.
Yes, exactly.
Ooh, I want one part where there's a bridge and like a little troll that asks you riddles. Just like everything.
Over the Rio
in
Grande.
English. It asks you riddles in English.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
if you find the warp level, there'll be a Spanglish troll.
You know what I want? You guys remember in Neverending Story, the part where there's the 2 big statues and you have to walk through without any doubt in your heart, otherwise their eyes open and they like shoot lasers at you and kill you? That's what I want. I want that.
I'm with you. I want that too. Yeah.
Is that really your child?
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about this. I mean, I'm not mad about the emergency funding. Obviously, I predicted that if he did this, that like the media would obviously be like, "Oh, look, all of our dictatorship predictions have come true. He's a dictator." Yeah, not really. I mean, there've been since Congress passed presidential emergency measures in 1976. There's been 58 of them, 12 of them under Obama. So that's not a big deal.
They just never talked about him with his little propaganda web.
Yeah, of course. And I guess maybe the only victory is that now he's using $8 billion, where he was originally asking for $5 billion, and he still gets $1 billion from Congress from the spending bill they're signing. So I don't know. I guess it's fine because it makes the Democrats look unreasonable and stupid. But I don't think anyone's super excited about this.
I have a feeling they will forget about it by mid-April.
Well, people are saying that they're going to use it as a precedent to try to use a state of emergency in the future to for gun control or something.
Yeah, that's
that argument doesn't even make any sense to me.
And you're right; it makes no sense whatsoever because we have a Second Amendment, we have a Constitution. So it's literally.
I don't know. I wouldn't discount it. I mean, the Constitution hasn't really done that much to stop the other one. You know what I mean? It's like
no, I don't know. What do you mean? I mean, I like the Constitution holds up, free speech in this country. It's not the government that's oppressing us. It's not the government necessarily taking away at least First Amendment rights. It's private corporations.
Yeah, well, no, but I think I understand the point that Space Pan is making, and it's like they will totally, I think, bypass certain things that are in the Constitution or things that have actually been ruled against by the Supreme Court. Like they totally do affirmative action, like all the time. It's really obvious if you live in places like San Francisco or even New York or Seattle, like that they're constantly hiring people because of their race or their gender, but and they just don't care. But I think the thing is that's strong about the Second Amendment, which people underestimate, is that it's not just the Second Amendment, which is this, thing on paper and in our courts, but the Second Amendment has allowed for hundreds of years at this point of weapons manufacturing to be based in our nation, to the point where we are by far the world's largest manufacturer of weapons. And the weapons manufacturer, they make a tremendous amount of profit. And so they are very active in lobbying government all the time. And so it would be actually pretty hard to stop those people.
Yeah, right? But even, it's the NRA is sort of, it's kind of the only thing we've got. Like the left has everything. The left has every lobbying organization. They've got so much behind them. And the NRA is sort of what a well-orchestrated, well-funded, effective conservative lobbying group looks like. And
yeah, but that's it.
We have. That's it. That's all we have.
I mean, there is well, maybe not so much currently, but the evangelical lobby was pretty powerful. Maybe 14, 13 years ago was when it started to kind of go away. But those mega churches, they were pretty powerful for a while. They might not be, though. The NRA and the weapons manufacturing that they work with, and the Republicans that they work with, are all together very powerful, and they've never stopped being powerful, even for a year.
Good, thank God. I see.
Yeah, and it's one of these things where it's like, on the one hand, I'm kind of like, that's, because I am somebody who's raised in the left. I don't understand guns. It's not part of my life. I do value the Second Amendment on principle, and it's like, once you think philosophically about guns or rifles and whatever else, you realize that as long as the technology exists, you got to make sure that you are in a country that has access to it, or you will get taken over by somebody else who does have it. And so it's like, okay, well, if anybody's going to have it, it better be your guys. And so in that way, cool. But at the same time, it's also kind of like, I sort of wish that there was some, lovely renewable energy thing that was like super common that everybody was using. I guess it's Iron Man's dilemma from the Marvel movies.
What's his dilemma? Explain that.
So Iron Man was a weapons manufacturer before he became Iron Man. And he could make these really, really devastating missiles. And then some Middle Eastern terrorists kidnapped him and demanded that he recreate one of the missiles that he was that were being sold to be used on these people. Like, these people had been attacked with his weapons, and they were like, now we have you, and you're going to teach us how to build them, and then we're going to conquer America. Ha! And they damaged him so that his
fiction.
Yes, it's fiction. So he was like this billionaire weapons manufacturer that had invented all of his own stuff, because that makes sense. So like, he is trapped in this room, and the thing is, they had there was shrapnel lodged in his chest, and it's always inching towards his organs. And so he and this other guy that was captive with him invented some little like small energy room unit to keep the shrapnel from actually getting to his heart, and it kept it away. And so he after he escaped, he created his first Iron Man suit when he was supposed to create the missile for them, and then he escaped with the Iron Man suit, the very primitive one. But then when he was done, he was like, you know what, screw weapons, I just want to make renewable energy, like this little thing that powers my chest so that the shrapnel doesn't, get me or something. I don't know if it was renewable energy, but like super efficient energy. But it turned out that was not going to be as profitable. People wanted the weapons. And so that is the dilemma. Like, people, if something is something that everybody agrees upon, such as super efficient energy, it's never going to be as popular as the forbidden commodity.
Well, yeah, but who doesn't want super efficient energy? I mean, you can...
Nobody, which is why absolutely every country will manufacture it.
Right. I mean, we have...
But only some countries will allow their citizens to manufacture guns, ammunitions, bombs, etc. And so, because of the fact that only some countries will be manufacturing this stuff, it'll be worth a lot more. That's the dilemma.
Well, I don't know. I like that.
Okay. So, blah 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 blah. I feel like we've exhausted the possibilities of talking about what we were just sort of talking about in regards to national politics, and we are nearing the end of the stream. And so, I want to talk about this TERF getting arrested in the UK.
Yes, amazing. Go for it.
So I haven't really looked into the story overwhelmingly, but I put on I listened to Sargon's thing, but for me it's basically just like, you're supposed to be surprised. I mean, feminists are just always shocked when it's kind of like that little tattletale girl who's like telling on 3 boys a day, and then finally like some boy catches her doing something wrong, and he tells the teacher, and she cries for like 3 hours straight because she can't believe she got in trouble. Like,
yeah,
that's how the feminists are acting. It's like, wait, you do realize that you guys have tried to send men to prison for alleged hate speech on Twitter and all sorts of crap for your own, hypersensitive, like random fits of histrionics that you frequently go into. And you were all ready to completely get rid of free speech, and now that it's being authoritarian speech codes are being weaponized against you, you expect people to care, and your people don't. The only people who give a shit are people like Sargon, because he has principles, or Benjamin Boyce, who's a guy that I know, who's small-ish channel, who has principles. But like TERFs, of course, they all have each other. They're all a bunch of basic bitches with 2 backs. They always have each other's back. That's their thing. But the otherwise, they are a pretty small minority of feminists, like less than 5% of feminists, probably less than 2%.
Yeah.
Though they all know each other from all across the world. It's this. It's because have you ever encountered them on Twitter?
The TERFs?
Yeah.
I interviewed a TERF once because I was doing a story. She's a big TERF leader. I did a story a few years ago for Out Magazine about there's a cross-dressing academy here in New York City. It's been around since the early 90s. And this was it was a fascinating story because this is a legit cross-dressing. So it's straight men by and large who come to this, school, and they pay a ton of money to get dressed up like a woman, and then you can pay more money to get taken out by the head mistress. Her name is Miss Vera, who's a lovely woman. Actually, I really, really like her. But she would, you can do like the weekend special and pay like $10,000 or something to get done up like a woman, get taken out for tea, go to the blah, 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 all this. So I did a story about this school, and then I interviewed some TERFs about it because, this is something, and Miss Vera said to me in this art for this story, and I quoted her, which is so interesting. And there's actually, and I visited, there's like a cross-dressing group in New York, and I went to like their headquarters, and they have it's like this townhouse near Port Authority where they have lockers where you can keep they're all like straight married men basically, and they come here and they keep their women's clothes in these lockers, and they get dressed up and they go out. And Miss Vera said to me, cross-dressing or transvesticism is the ugly truth of the trans movement. And I think that's what everyone's talking about with the bathroom bills and whatever. And I interviewed this TERF about it, Elizabeth. I can't remember her last name. I'm sorry, but she was all against it, But very much on the TERF argument that transgenderism is a men's rights thing and has nothing to do with feminism.
It's not a men's rights thing at all.
Well, not men's rights, but you know what I mean. Like not in the men's rights movement's way.
Well, TERFs have this tendency to kind of take some nugget of truth that they maybe heard about 3 years ago and run with it about 400 times more than is logically or even just a good idea in any way. Like they just take things, run with it, invent crazy exaggerations to the point where nobody takes them seriously. But keep going.
Yeah, I think you're right, but in terms of ideology, I think the TERFs have a stronger leg to stand on than the intersectional, feminists do. I don't hate the TERFs. I think they're amusing, and I can understand them. I can't understand the intersectional radical feminists. What are your thoughts on the TERFs? I don't think you like them too much, do you? What, both of you? What?
No, yeah, I'm not a fan. Well, okay, the thing about the TERFs is you can give them a little bit of credit where it's due, right? Because they're at least somewhat consistent and principled, but they're crazy. They're crazy as hell,
Well, what makes them crazy? Maybe I don't know too much about them. I just sort of know the talking points of what they're about. But what makes them crazy?
Well, you start with your really Are you back, Prince? I think you're muted for a second.
Oh yeah, I was. No, okay. So the thing is, I just need to acknowledge my lovely $20 super chat. It says, "Hey guys, there is now a PAC called Stop Pocahontas to Hound Warren. I hope the Democrats choke on their stupid identity politics." Agreed.
Can I say something about that? So I watched the State of the Union at a bar in Manhattan. Many people would be amazed to hear this. It was packed. There's probably 200 people there. It was a party. It was so much fun. And every time Elizabeth Warren came on screen, everyone like on cue started doing the tomahawk chalk and going, "Oh yeah."
Oh my god, that's amazing!
It was so funny.
Where was that?
It was a bar on the Upper East Side. That's I guess
okay.
Having a Republican owner and like a lot of Republicans hang out there.
Okay.
Anyway, so you're saying about the
Yeah. Hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, you guys can hear me. Sorry, I just unplugged myself for a second. So the philosophical position that TERFs hold is more defensible in that they're trying to say that gender roles are rather arbitrary, but you can never change your biological sex. Basically, is if you boil it down. Now,
Yeah, I'm down with that.
They're not good at phrasing themselves. They are horribly, because they're feminists. So they include all of this, just like, it would be like the girliest girl ever being like, because, for example, I have always been confined by the feminine gender role. And so it's the gender role that is oppressive. But I will never deny that I am a woman. It's like, yeah, of course not, you dumb broad. So, yeah, the philosophical.
It's kind of the difference between like the Black Panthers and BLM is like the TERFs and the intersectional feminists. I mean, right?
Wait, no, because the Black Lives Matter is the equivalent of the Black Panthers. Really, they're all. The only difference is that Black Panthers were full on Marxists, and Black Lives Matter is like just bastardized religious Marxists who don't always fully realize that they're Marxists, unless they do, and they do admit it, which often they do. Right. But the TERFs are very different. It would be more like the difference between a Black church community organizing and the Black Panthers and the BLM. And the Black church community organizing would be the TERFs, and Black Lives Matter and Black Panthers would be the intersectionals. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But they were, as you're saying, like as you said, more ideologically consistent.
Yeah, they are. But the TERFs are
ideologically defendable because I obviously don't support that, but because exactly what they believe and they're forthright about it. And they're firm in their convictions.
Well, I have like some very subtle disagreements. Like they will never call a transgender woman a woman. They will say a man. They will always insist on calling them a man. And I'm just like, look, I will always say that they are biologically male, and they're never going to fully change. I will never say that they're a real woman, but I will call them a transgender woman. Because why not? And they will not do that. It's that they're just really bad at actually arguing their cases, and they can't do it without dramatic, crazy, hyperbolic exaggerations, and they just sound like idiots. Now, Spacepan, what were you saying?
About the TERFs, basically just like in some levels they're just like basic feminists, right? But because feminism isn't about what they say it's about, that's what leads to this like multifaceted, just like clusterfuck of what it is, right? So basically, you start with gynocentrism. They're women and women first, right? And then because different women have different things that they value and have different experiences, they end up just championing it for their own thing. So of course, like a lot of the lesbians lean more towards this like trans exclusive radical feminist thing, which is it's really, really traditionalist. Actually, it's probably the strongly most traditionalist of all feminisms, and in a sense, it's like the purest form of feminism because they're really honest about a lot of these aspects of the different approaches to feminism that contradict this core idea of essentially women and women first. So I see TERFism as like it kind of is like the most pure of the feminists. Like
because at least they're not trying to lie about what they are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Whereas other feminists, like when you try to follow that path, they run into all these like awkwardness where they're like, oh, well, I don't want to be anti-gay, and oh, well, if a man has an issue, I want to like at least give lip service to their issues, and like all this stuff, right? And then they end up making all these compromises to try to make it more palatable, and it is more palatable when they, make these.
If you're a gullible dumbass,
but that's everyone. That's like the entire blue pill world. That's everybody throughout like most of human history.
I guess it took me until late 2015 that I started to like totally reject them trying to say that they liked gay men.
Well, this is why even if I have strong ideological differences, I hate hypocrisy. So I actually respect people who fully go in and believe and are convicted. That's why like the TERFs don't bother me, Because
that's why centrists are the people I can't stand. I can't stand moderates and centrists. They're even worse than communists.
I'm the same way. The communists. I'm like, I get it. I get what you're saying. You're wrong. You're evil. You're leading towards genocide. But you believe it. I get it. But
I would say that I'm most appropriately described as a centrist. But I mean, I'm also extremely, I think it's not even so much that I'm a centrist, that I'm just a specifist.
I wouldn't think
like it's just like I have varying.
I don't think of you as a centrist. I think you're
okay.
And you're smart. Like,
okay, this is what I would.
I'm sorry, you're a conservative. I know you don't want to hear that, but you are.
Okay, well, there's an argument to be made. There's an argument to be made that I am a conservative, and there's an argument to be made that I'm a progressive. And by technical definitions, I actually match up more with the literal definition of the word progressive, but progressive has been repurposed to mean communist for since around World War II, and that has been very clear with, by the way, that they have talked about it, and to the point where it's now downright religious
the word progressive was invented. Sorry, my phone was ringing. Hear my Roseanne ringtone. No, but the word progressive was invented specifically to advance communism. Isn't that correct?
I don't know. I don't know the exact origin.
I don't think the word progressive existed before it was tied to
kind of like intersectional.
Yeah, like it was like a marketing thing for communism.
Very well could be. Very well could be. But for me, it's not that I'm a centrist. Like, okay, there's the bad type of centrist, which is the person that just equivocates everything and refuses to even actually say anything ever. So they're like, yeah, and I support women's rights because women are oppressed, except for I don't support the TERFs because the TERFs are icky and gross and transphobic. And I support men and boys having equal rights, which is why they should be taught that patriarchy hurts men too. And I also believe, and it's like those people will call themselves centrists. Or and then there's also MRAs, like people like Derek was talking about this before, like people who will talk about how the wage gap is stupid, how feminists are stupid, but then won't go on to call themselves an MRA, which is just like, geez, you are a really weak-minded, lazy person. Like, you're not, like, you're totally prepared to attack the people you don't like, but you're not at all prepared to defend the position you're actually advocating for in any way, even enough to admit that you advocate for that position. That's all you are when you're an MRA, because unlike feminism, which is a fake-ass word that didn't need to exist, an MRA is an acronym. It stands for Men's Rights Advocate at its basis. I mean, you can also be an activist, but, like, you should at least admit that you are that if you are advocating for men's rights. Like, I don't see what the problem with that is. But my thing is that I'm not that type of centrist. I'm not the type of person that just refuses to actually take a firm stand. It's more that I take many, many, many different firm stands, but they seem contradictory to people who like aren't smart enough to like actually think about each issue specifically. And so if somebody were to try to like bracket me and ask for a simple word for like what I am, the best thing would be centrist to their simpleton plebeian mind.
Yeah. But
I don't even define the political spectrum based on like progressive versus conservative or whatever. Like, I think that's just like a red herring. I think it's strictly economics. That's the only thing that matters in terms of defining left versus right. It's the only objective standard. So yeah, that's how I approach it. Because like I would be considered extremely progressive in a lot of ways. Like, so, but like to me, that's all consistent with believing in people being free and like having a real market and things like that.
How do you guys define progressive? Because I'm not.
I define it literally as what it is in the dictionary. It is liberal and progressive are both very, very fair, nice terms in the dictionary. So I'm going to look up liberal, and I will read it.
With full knowledge that does not actually reflect the Democrat Party, say the Liberal Party.
Well, no, and it doesn't reflect. It doesn't sound anything like them. So liberal, because that word it says
they co-opted the term liberal, right? It used to be libertarian, and now they're co-opting the term libertarian. They've been like, oh, we're called.
No, but I think that liberal has been, saying things like a liberal usage of colorful fabrics. Like, I think that's probably been around for centuries.
Well, yeah, that's different, yeah. But in terms of like
okay, it's liberal adjective. 1, open to new behavior or opinions and willing to discard traditional values. 2, of education concerned mainly with broadening a person's general knowledge and experience rather than with technical or professional training. Noun, a person of liberal views. So why would I say that that's not the case with me? Because I mean, that actually does make sense. And I don't think that that's a fake ass definition, kind of like feminism is obviously a fake ass definition. Like, obviously, feminism is not about equality. Everybody who's ever met an actual true believer feminist knows that it is anything but the sort. Whereas with this, it's like, well, yeah, I think that that's fair. And I think that, you know, the liberals that I largely knew in the 90s kind of largely really were this way. Like they were never telling people, sit down, shut up and listen, white boy, you are not allowed to have an opinion because you do not have experiences with oppression, blah, 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 which is now what a lot of people would describe as liberals, except usually that's conservatives describing people that way. And the people who are really like that, like the Black Lives Matter people, they would describe themselves simply as leftists, which is a dog whistle for I don't quite want to call myself a Marxist, but I am more of a Marxist than I am a liberal, and I hate liberals because my sociology teacher told me to. And so progressive, though, but even progressive is not an unfair definition either. It says progressive, happening or developing gradually or in stages, proceeding step by step. Two,
terrifying.
Two, of a group, person, or idea favoring or implementing social reform or new liberal ideas. Now, to me, why would men's rights not be a progressive thing?
Why is liberal progressive based on those definitions? So,
liberal and progressive is it's all fine. Now, none of these, to me, are feminist or Marxist.
Of course, well, progressive is, I think.
No, progressive. Okay, noun, a person advocating or implementing social reform or new liberal ideas. Wrong. These are not new ideas. These are ideas that have been disproved decades and decades ago that are over 150 years old.
No, that definition is very telling. It's the implementation, which means force.
Yeah, but social reform or new liberal ideas, a person advocating or implementing social reform or new liberal ideas, well, that means that all these fucking fake ass people trying to say that they're not Marxists, except for they really are Marxists, like the intersectionals, they are not progressives at all. That's why we call them regressives, for a reason, because they're just not, if you actually look at the definition of the word. So that's why I have more of a tendency to want to call myself progressive and liberal than conservative, because by the literal definition, and I'm a big fan of literal definitions, staying what we are, staying the way that they are, because otherwise people can entirely gaslight culture and convince you that what your opinion was a year ago is no longer your opinion, because the words that you were using, they changed the definitions of. So I refuse to allow them to do that. So now, overall, I'm almost done with this. Overall, I would say that culturally, I agree with more things than that are called either conservative or right wing in the current year. But I believe that that's because of Obama era propaganda, making sure that our Overton window as a culture is just so incredibly crazy that I just ended up over there, but it's not my fault.
Yeah, but if you are, I mean, there are a million different stripes of conservative, right? So if you, I'm you know, there's a lot of people like, I don't like labels. I like to call myself one side or the other. I proudly call myself a conservative. Namely, what are you trying to conserve? The Constitution. I'm a constitutionalist.
Yes, and that's the most. That's the only big important argument that I would take into consideration in potentially calling myself a conservative is the Constitution.
Because the Constitution is a liberal document in the classical sense of the word.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to conserve that. I'm trying to conserve the freedom that was inscribed there. You know.
And that's the thing. You can make an argument from just about any perspective to justify most terms. And that's why my thing is that whenever a person uses a word, it's really important to ask them what they mean by it. And I hold that, anytime a person uses a word, whatever they mean by that word is literally what that word means in that context. And, we talk a lot about how speakers have obligations to to try to speak clearly, right? But we don't ever talk about how listeners have an obligation to actually try to understand what a specific person means when they say a word. But like one thing that really clears us up is I remember it was a long time ago, Lauren Rose had made a video about the concept of progress. And she pointed out, progress technically is kind of a value neutral term, right? Anything can progress. Cancer can progress, right? It just means to move forward with whatever it is in principle, right? And this infusion of it with these series of value judgments is, I think, it's really kind of sloppy. So I really hate that it's become this term for like advancing a specific set of things that are just seen as good. And I think what people on the left do is they just package a lot of the stuff they want into this concept of progress. And they use it as a way to just kind of smear it all together and say, if you're not with us, you're against us. We're moving forward, right? But the way I see it is like humans have progressed. Like there are things that are seen as morally reprehensible that weren't in the past, and those are forms of progress. And I think there is a matter of objective ethics, like that humans will get better and our ethics will improve with time. Which is, I guess, like not everybody's on board with that. Like I get that's kind of like a weird thing that I think, but I definitely think that like humans will become ethically superior to people of the past.
Right. I mean, I don't think that. That's what I was saying earlier about how the word progressive is extremely politicized to mean specifically Marxist. So, what do you? Yes, obviously, mankind has progressed and continues to progress. If you're talking about, any number of things like human rights, medicine, whatever. But that's why that word progressive. What are you progressing towards? It's specifically politicized, and it's Marxism. You're progressing towards Marxism.
Yeah, they're going towards the one true Marxism that hasn't been tried yet.
Exactly. Yeah, the pure Marxism that's we haven't figured out yet, but we will one day.
Yeah, which was the dream of the 1930s or 40s or something, and it's an old dream. It's a regressive thing to actually try to romanticize, and so that's why I refuse to allow it. I'm not going to be the guy that's like just rolls over and lets them steal a perfectly useful word, and so I mean. This is why I end up kind of calling myself a centrist. It's like, okay, I am a constitutionalist, but I also feel like I'm more progressive than they are. So what do I call myself?
I don't know. I think constitutionalist is a great term that we should take back and make popular.
Yeah, but
my stance is that like if we're gonna have a government, then and it's supposedly based on this like social contract idea with a constitution. If we're gonna accept all that, then yes, let's be constitutionalists, right? So like I have a lot of like layers of like what I think should be advocated for. So like it's kind of hard to, you know what I mean? It's not as simple as like here's the one thing that we should do. There's really, I think very few people have like that kind of a standpoint, Like to me, it's like Ron Paul should have won. Like if we didn't, like, and then once it was shown obviously that Ron Paul couldn't be president of the U.S. and that constitutionalism isn't going to work, like I don't know. At that point, you kind of start looking into the libertarian accelerationist. Like let's just let communism win so that they can fail, so that we'll have like another chance to try something.
Dad, don't. No.
Yeah. You didn't realize.
Take the black pill. Come on.
You didn't realize that he was going to legalize propaganda, did you? Uh-oh. That's a bit of a can of worms.
Seriously though, like even so-called American conservatives, like what do they actually do to reduce the size of government? They've really, the left is only been the left winning. The left has won. They continue to win. And Trump isn't even, I wouldn't even consider Trump to be right wing. He's kind of in the center. He's kind of center left, Like I'd really like to see more actual reduction in the size of government, but there's so many reasons that that's just not feasible.
Yeah, well, okay. The typical blue pill line would be that, what are you talking about? The left doesn't have institutional power. All three branches of, well, I guess technically Congress right now is not. This is what they would say, right? Right, like within weeks of Trump and all Republicans sweeping 2016, they were like, the you are wrong to say that the left has institutional power. All three branches of government are Republican. And over the past 35, 40 years, we have had more Republican presidents than Democrat ones. So you are wrong when you say that the left has institution. And it's just like, okay. So I forgot that the education system, basically all of media, laws around things like domestic violence and spousal, things, all of these things, none of these things count as institutional anything to you guys. I don't know. Ugh.
Well, because they can't think of themselves as being the man, and they are the man. They have to think of themselves as being rebels and revolutionaries.
Well, they're also just really dumb, and they actually they really can't think about anything besides, oh my god, Republicans just won an election. That must mean that somehow they're all sitting in some secret boardroom, cackling, and we're just being subjected to them, because it's not that, clearly it's not because the citizens actually wanted them to win, and if they did, it's because they were convinced by their white man mind powers to vote against their best interest, but they don't even know anything about anything. Okay, but I want to go back to the TERFs because I want to finish talking about that.
Good.
So the thing is about the TERFs, this is the problem with TERFs. In my video that I'm going to make about this, and I need to do this video because I've made numerous videos. I've made between probably 5 and 10 videos about them. I don't even remember anymore. The best one, just for the record, you should watch this one. It's worth watching. It's called The Worst Thing About TERFs. And then in parentheses, it says Feminism Incorporated's Budget Cuts. And I have this, little conspiracy theory that is pretty clearly true, which is that, so, feminism is an organization, and maybe potentially, especially in the UK, but there's massive amounts of officially documented feminist organizations, and we know that they work directly with things like the family court system and domestic violence system to ensure that feminist activists always have jobs doing things like being guardian ad litems to children that might have be dealing with abusive fathers, is what they're going to say, or they have feminist activists in the court system training people to be feminist-ish, and they work in schools, they work in, there's a handful of careers that these people can go into, and they push other people out. They monopolize these careers. Like, you can't, if you're not a feminist, you will not graduate. I think social work is largely one of these things. It's not entirely as bad. And during 2015 especially was the worst year in which the feminists just got completely brazen. Like, they thought that they already had taken over the world, and they were like already celebrating. Like, because somebody told them in 2015, so by the way, we're going to steal this election for Hillary Clinton, so we should all do our victory lap now. And that was 2015, because they were just so disgusting back in that year. And then 2016 was when the full-on battle actually came, and they ended up losing. And it was right after that TERFs had always been rumored from the intersectionals. They would bring up TERFs. But it was always this like unicorn of a concept where like you knew that they were supposed to be awful and that you were supposed to hate them, but like no one ever actually met one or even encountered one on the internet. You were a journalist, so you were able to find somebody in New York, but the people in San Francisco would call people turfy as an insult. Like, they'd be like, what you said sounds kind of turfy and blah 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 blah, and it's like, what even is that to you? Is it just some thing that you use to call people as a derogatory name because you decided that they aren't you know, in spite of the fact that they're doing their best to not be transphobic or trans exclusionary, you have decided that they are not trans inclusive enough for your flavor, and so you're going to call them a TERF. I don't think that that's what that word means. You know, that was what it was always kind of like. It was kind of like Nazi is to a lot of people. And then I started actually observing. I found right after the election, I found some I found a TERF group on Facebook, and it was called This Never Happens, and it was dedicated to searching for news stories of transgender women in particular committing violent crimes or sex crimes. And that's all it was posting those things. And it was very dramatic. And when you would see them talking to each other in the comments, it was like, okay, either you were raped by 11 different trans women and you are now terrified of going to public restrooms by the sound of it, or you're full of shit and you're just a crazy person. And judging by the fact that you're a radical feminist, I'm going with option 2. It's just my hunch, you know? And so I made a video that was saying the real problem with TERFs. And basically, I sort of said what I just said. Like, I was like, you know, what I've said on the stream at least. I was like, you know, ultimately, philosophically, their argument makes some sense. And I went on for like 5 minutes. And, you know, about like why a lot of what they're saying is true. But then I went on to basically say, except for the thing is that they go on to like ridiculously, hyperbolically exaggerate the violence coming from transgender women to the point where it no longer seems believable. And they have these like weird internet meeting places just devoted towards trash talking transgender women. And it's like, I can understand why trans women wouldn't like them. And so what happened was that's how I got on the TERF's bad side, but it was more diabolical than that, because one specific one, this UK broad named Magdalene Burns, and she's actually has mental issues, like severe ones, because she's had 2 different brain tumors in the past 2 years. So like something's actually wrong with her head. Like she's just completely not rational, but she is able to be somewhat clever. Like she knows what she's doing, but she's not making rational decisions. And what she did was she made a response video to me. But what she did was she entirely cut out the first 5 minutes. It was like a 10-minute video. Well, she cut out the first 5 minutes where I was saying all the different things that I thought were, you know, reasonable about TERFs. And she just is like, she has a really thick accent, you know, like some sort of like Liverpool, Manchester type UK accent. And she was like, I'm gonna leave out the first 5 minutes, I see his point. And then she goes on to make this like vicious response to me, where it like she was, you know, doing the whole hyperbolic, like, you know, acting like, oh, I can't believe you are criticizing women for wanting to be safe in our own spaces, you know, like that kind of shit. And it was like, but that's not really what I'm doing, because there was that first 5 minutes that you cut out, you know? And so at first I just tried to be reasonable. And I wrote as a comment, I was like, hey, it's unfortunate that you did that and that you kind of misrepresented my video. She didn't say anything. And then she had this like little army of sock puppety, like it didn't actually seem like there was it turned out that there was probably only about a handful that were really active, but they all had many different sock puppet accounts. And they were just berating me and just saying I was a horrible misogynist, and how would my mother feel if they knew how much I hated women, and all this crazy shit. Mm. And here's this thing, this YouTuber said that she was going to do a live stream with me. So I was just trying to clear it up before we were going to do that, but they just kept going and they kept going. And I was like, Magdalene, I thought that you were going to do a live stream with me. Could you tell your fans to knock it off, because they're kind of acting like piranhas? And she never even acknowledged what my criticism was. Like she never said, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Hey guys, knock it off. He's a nice enough guy. She never did that. And I asked her very nicely, because they were following me over to Twitter and everything. Like, they were really obsessive over the course of a few days. And then finally I was like, okay, Magdalene, you have to know that it's like you want them to be attacking me. And then as soon as I said that, as soon as I implicated her as being, kind of like orchestrating this thing, she flipped into a psycho and was like, oh, look at him, he's triggered, oh, look at him, ha 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 ha, oh, he's such a man baby, look at him cry, and it was like, whoa. And then it was like nonstop 24/7, this like army of sock puppets just going crazy on me for like a week, 2 weeks straight. And it was just this really, and that's how they act. Like, it was, their level of insanity in arguing is equivalent to, okay, let's say you were on a stage debating a feminist, right? And there's an audience watching, right? Everyone sees this. She decides to walk up over to you and slap you across the face. And you're like, wait, you just slapped me. And she'd be like, no, I didn't. And be like, no, you actually slapped me. And she was like, you're only saying that because you're a misogynist. And you're like, no, you slapped me. And she's like, okay, prove it. Prove it. Point to the person who slapped you. And you point at her. And then she ducks and then says, see, he pointed to somebody off stage. He wasn't talking about me. Like, that would be the level of their insanity. And when they get into these interactions, when they all decide to gang up on somebody, it's just this absolute madness. And you can ask Joseph about it. He is experienced from them. And it's because of that, typical feminist bullying times 10, that nobody feels sorry for them when they start getting arrested. And then the only people who are defending them are A, themselves, and B, people who have true principles. That's my whole point.
Well said. I completely agree. Yeah. They go ahead. Sorry.
And the dust bottles just
soaking it in.
Oh, no, I guess it's just the thing to finish up is that, like, when I made those first videos, it was like 2 years ago, literally. It was at the beginning of 2017. And I had no idea what was going to happen, because I thought I was telling them that I largely agreed with them. And that was what I got as a response. And I was like, okay, something is happening here. Like, these people, it's their level of irrationality has to have a motive. And what I think their motive is that Feminism Incorporated, the greater feminist organizations must be facing budget cuts because they keep losing elections. The feminist lobby is no longer working. And so all of the feminist activists are going to, potentially get fired, and they're worried about that. And that's sort of what I'm thinking is going on. But they've gotten more and more aggressive, and it turns out that the intersectionals, I thought that there was a chance that the TERFs would actually win this war, and that TERFs would, like, maybe potentially beat the intersectionals, but no. Nobody can stand up to the intersectionals, at least in the UK.
No, they can't, because the TERFs it's too honest, it's too exposed, and that's why it's not palatable, right? So they're kind of doomed to always fail, because you got to sugarcoat that pill. That's a pill you got to sugarcoat.
Well, and here's another thing. I think that the intersectionals don't actually have any sort of principles. Like, I think that every single one of their criteria for deciding what is hate speech and what isn't hate speech is basically entirely arbitrary, and that they don't know what they believe. They just do kind of what they're told, because they're all such massive authoritarians that and they all believe that somebody else knows more about politics than they do. And what I'm thinking, really, the only thing that the intersectionals agree upon is that they want less free speech more often. Anytime there's somebody that's going to get like arrested in the UK, they are all for it.
Mm-hmm.
And they would turn on, even if it was another intersectional, they would turn on that person for the greater good of arresting people for tweets.
Yeah, and so what if your listeners don't realize? I don't think we stated it. What happened to that woman who was arrested in the UK and detained for 7 hours? All she did was tweet, "Women are not men." I believe that's what she said, and that got the police knocking on her door, stating biological fact.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but then here's the thing. I wonder if that's true, because I know what these transgender people. Okay, so what she got arrested for was stating the biological fact, but there might be more to the story. Like it might have been one of these things where that actual turf had 15 sock puppet accounts and was stalking this transgender activist, because I've seen them do it. They've done it to me. What they do to the transgender activists is, and they've hounded channels that I liked, that I think I maybe even talked to sometimes. There was this trans guy, female to male in the UK named Yorick, who had a YouTube channel, and he was nice. And same crap happened with that crazy brain tumor chick. She deliberately misrepresented him in videos numerous times, and her little army of turf sock puppets just hounded him on Twitter, and he deleted his channel. Because the thing is that when they're dealing with trans people, all they have to do is being like, "You'll never be a man. We can hear in your voice that you're not a real man. I bet that you're tiny in person. I bet that you're, just things like that." Or if it's a trans woman, they're like, "We can see your Adam's apple. Oh my God. You think that you're fooling anybody? I bet you're like 6'3". Oh my God. You obviously, you have a 5 o'clock shadow. Oh my God. And just crap like that. And they're just like, I can't deal with this. Because I mean, if I was trans,
I mean that's ugly. Nobody.
yeah, and they legit do that all the time, because they were doing it to me. I'm not even trans, and they were like, something. They were calling me like they were saying, "Don't you know that you're never going to be a woman?" And I was like, yeah. So I'm not supposed to be, like they had no idea, and just because they're just that ready to attack people, and they were doing all sorts of just like ridiculous things. Like, "I bet you're just mad because no one wants to fuck you. I bet you can't get a date. I bet blah blah blah." It's like, actually no, last time I did go out, I did get laid. But okay, you're not hurting my feelings, but if I was a trans person, yeah, I can see why. So then I'm imagining this transgender activist, who, granted, transgender activists are completely insane. They are completely insane. It might have been that this turf was literally stalking this person around and trying to make them self-conscious like that.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard that about the sock puppet accounts. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. I would not be surprised. However, that shouldn't be a crime. They shouldn't have the cops knocking on your door.
No, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. I mean, there could be a crime in terms of harassment. Like if you're creating multiple accounts just to follow them around on social media. Yeah, but the technicality that they should be arresting them on should not be the fact that they said you're a man in one of those tweets. It should be more like, no, they traced these sock puppet accounts and you created, over 5 accounts just to fuck with this person after they blocked numerous ones. That's what we're arresting you over.
But yeah, if the case were harassment, there's a case for that. However, I think the reason why this has gotten people fired up who are sort of ideologically in the same camp as you and I is if this weren't consistent with like the UK just punishing any speech that's not super left wing. Like, would they have arrested someone who's harassing a conservative, harassing, I don't know, Nigel Farage or a Brexit person? No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't do it.
Yep. Absolutely. And there is no hate speech towards white men.
It does not exist. It's not a thing. It cannot happen.
Yeah, like I mean, there's literally like hate speech is this very arbitrarily defined thing, and I don't think that there is a single way, unless you called them a maggot with an F. That's like the only thing that you can pass off as hate speech towards white men.
Oh, I know. I hate that term. There's no such thing as hate speech. It doesn't exist. If there's some hideous, awful, racist person saying something, that's a hideous, awful, racist person saying something. Like as soon as you start to try to define it and legalize it, it's like it's just a slippery slope.
Yeah, this is what Spacepan wrote his senior thesis on for philosophy. Actually,
It's so funny. I was people have asked me like, oh, people think that I have this like I wrote that profile of Milo Yiannopoulos for Out Magazine, and then the liberals went crazy because it was very fair and balanced. And people are like,
the leftists, because they're not liberal, they're leftists.
Yes, you're right. The leftists, exactly. I will say progressives. You might not, but I will say progressives.
Regressives.
I think we should. Well, yes, they are regressive, but I think we should make progressive an ugly word. But so they.
I won't let them win the battle for the word progressive.
And this is where you and I differ. We don't differ on a lot. We differ on some things. This is one of them because I think the word progressive should be like the word Nazi. We should make it really ugly. But so people are like, oh, the lefties turned on you and blah blah. And that's why you like became a conservative. Total bullshit. Did not happen. And I was thinking like, when did I start thinking conservative? And I was thinking back to high school in my AP English class, and we had to for our big thesis for the end of the year, we had to pick a political issue and make a stance on it. And I wrote about hate crime legislation, and I was openly gay in high school, and it was a few years after, just a couple years after Matthew Shepard was murdered, which was not a hate crime, but we can talk about that later. And also there was his last name was Bird. I can't remember his first name. He's a black man who was dragged to death, and it was classified as a hate crime. Horrible stuff. And I was looking into it, and at the time I identified as a progressive or a liberal or whatever. And I wrote my entire thing. And as I looked into it, I wrote it thinking, 17 years old, I wrote it thinking I would come out like why we need hate crime legislation. And the more I looked into it, I was like, this is just blatantly unconstitutional. You can't do this. I'm sorry, these crimes are horrendous, and I understand the argument against them, but you just can't do this. You cannot, because it's coming on to stricter punishments for thought, and that's a slippery slope. And like, I'm 17 years old and I'm writing this. I remember my English teacher, who was a big old liberal, was like very upset with me and couldn't believe I came out this way, and she knew I was gay. But it's always been that way, and that's why also I mean,
was she the first person to call you an internalized homophobe?
That term did not exist in 2001 when I graduated high school.
Are you sure? I don't think that's true, because
that term didn't exist before Trump. I don't think.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't, because I went to a high school that was probably more progressive than your college, and then I went to the New School University at the undergraduate writing, theater, social sciences, blah 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 division of the New School, and we were talking about all sorts of crap like that in 2001.
In the same way that multicultural white supremacy didn't exist before.
Oh, that didn't exist.
That didn't exist before the Proud Boys. Multicultural.
Yeah, they had that was some full-on mental gymnastics. Now, I don't think it's entirely untrue that there is internalized I don't know if homophobia, but internalized anti-gay feelings. Like when you date the guy that, like he's sexy and he is like masculine traditionally, and then it turns out that he actually has a complex, and that's why he's like that. And it's like, oh, okay. This is why you're still single, even though you're like incredibly hot. Like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Are you speaking from experience? I think I know. I think I know what you're talking about, but
I've dated more than one guy like that.
What kind of a complex? What do you mean?
Like, he has this issue where he very, very explicitly doesn't want to act gay, isn't into gay things, mostly, almost exclusively has straight friends, and gets uncomfortable when he hangs out with you and his straight friends because you're kind of faggy. Oh, I said it. Stream's going to get demonetized.
Oh, you said it. It's getting demonetized.
Yeah, but have you dated that guy before? Because I mean, I've dated like 3 or 4 of them.
I don't know. I know. I feel like I know.
They probably don't really exist so much in New York, because I didn't really come into contact with them in New York. But they're in Seattle. They're not in San Francisco so much either. But they are definitely in Seattle. And I assume lots of
I don't know. Hot. I date him.
Oh, they're certainly hot for like the night, you know, like when you meet them at the party and everything's cool, and then you have to go like meet their straight friends, and it's like some dinner party with like girls. It's a bunch of couples, like straight couples, and then you guys, and it's like, oh, this is weird. Like,
But I mean, basically, you're talking about somebody who's just sort of disingenuous or uncomfortable with themselves. It's not necessarily. I mean, because the opposite would be like, oh, you have to be, as the gays say, and as Grindr enforces on its own platform, is that you have to be super like pro femme and like pro community.
oh yeah, no, they take it way too far to the point where, okay, well, first for some strange reason, you would expect me to get a lot of that comment that I'm a self-hating gay guy, but I absolutely don't. No, nobody ever says that about me. I think it's because of such that I have such an amount of specific emphasis on men's rights and the gay community that it would be really hard to say that about me. Yeah. That's probably why I never get that. But like, yeah, no, they do, like, they would say that about somebody like you all the time, and it's really just because you're a Republican. Like, that's all it is, I think. And but then they also have these just really elaborate ways of like roundabout ass, you know, like if you even prefer masculine men, and I mean, like, everybody prefers masculine men, kind of, like, for the most part, you know, 75% of guys would prefer to date a somewhat masculine guy, but you know, there's that 25% wiggle room and everything, blah 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 blah. But like, if you actually say that, then you have internalized homophobia. It's like that is kind of a thing that they do. But what I'm saying is that there is actually these guys that they can go out to a gay bar, get drunk, and you know, me acting as Megady as I potentially, because I don't know if you remember this about me, but like, I have absolutely when I'm in a good mood, which I was when we would see each other, I'm like the least socially inhibited person that you'll ever meet ever. Like, I'm basically act like I do on streams in person. I'm trying to entertain the room all the time. Crap. And so I'll be like that, and I'll like, one of these guys will decide that he's into me, and I'll be like, okay, cool, you're hot. I mean, you have a backwards cap on, it's kind of cheesy, but like, I mean, whatever, and everything's cool. And then, you know, like, all of a sudden he decides that me and my friends are all a bit too gay for him, and it's like, oh, so that was like actually a thing. And I've experienced it more than once, you know, and I've seen these guys, and I see the way that they change during the daytime and try to like, kind of like when they get a few drinks in them and they're around a bunch of gay guys, then they sort of start to act a little bit, just a little gay, you know, but then they like obviously feel ashamed of it when they're sober.
The next time that happens to you, give them my number. That sounds hot to me.
Yeah. But do you see how there is an actual fair argument to be made that this person might have like internalized, like, and it's not, I mean, it is a dramatically overused term like TERF, where, you know, like, there are real TERFs out there. Mostly though, it's just used to insult people when a trans person is mad.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
yeah, I don't want to see guys like that attacked necessarily. I mean, I don't really.
No, I don't want. I don't either.
I understand what you're saying, but it's
No, it's definitely not my little gay activist platform to try to shame those guys into watching more RuPaul's Drag Race, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, you and I are similar, that we both are very comfortable in our own skin and very outspoken, and I think you and I both have kind of like a great respect and admiration for like classically gay culture, and how, you know, fun, irreverent, and whatever, whether it's from Oscar Wilde up to Divine, and I guess RuPaul now, but not really watching anymore.
And we have a pretty darn similar Williamsburg gay accent too.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah. So we, yeah, I mean, I get it. It doesn't. I think what that reminded me of is that I'm very constantly aware of the fact that I do live in New York City, and I am in a bubble, even though I'm a definitely huge outsider of that bubble. I do tend to forget how things are. You know, I'm from Tennessee, and I go there a lot. I go back home a lot, but I do tend to forget how things are in other places. So the way you're describing that in Seattle, I could definitely see that. That doesn't surprise me. You would never see it in New York, because New York's New York, but
Yeah, no, in New York, if you try to like be like that around gay guys, they will hate you so much. They'll be like, we do not have time for this. Where's your Gucci?
Yeah, they almost kick you out of the bar for being a Republican, except
It's like no, most of them, the guys that are most like that, I mean, there are the little 10% of the gay church lady activisty type people, but there's also that like 90% of just like extremely faggoty guys that watch RuPaul's Drag Race a lot and like moved to New York to work in fashion, and they just have no tolerance for guys that aren't super gay New York fashion.
I cannot praise. I always praise you for this, but I cannot praise you enough for coming up with the term "gay church ladies." And you're so right. I don't know if you saw. I think I sent this to you. The New York Times Magazine did their big gay conservative story, and I was featured in it. And we
were supposed to look at that. Let's go through that, and that'll be the last thing that we do. And aside from maybe answer the questions in the super chats that have not yet come in yet, and so yeah. Thanks for being with us for so long. I didn't even mention anything about how we've gone overboard, but I'm enjoying this. So
you know what? I noticed we went overboard, and I'm enjoying it too. I'm having a good time. I didn't want it to end.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel good.
Lies.
Maybe not so much for Face Pod, but I don't know if he can chime in.
Oh no, I'm good. I'm just
New York Magazine.
Yeah, so New York Magazine. So first of all,
gay conservatives.
Let's go through this story, right?
Okay, hold on. I have to. I need to.
Sorry, New York Times Magazine, not New York Magazine.
New York Times. Oh no, there it is. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
For gay conservatives, the Trump era is the best and the worst of times.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let me screen share it with everyone and make sure I have nothing open. No, nothing open. That is revealing of any personal information. Oh, I should delete this entire chain of. Not delete. Close out this Google Chrome tab or window because it might have things in it that I don't want to pop up. Okay, so you know what? No, so okay, I will just do the screen sharing thing now because that is what we do when we don't work with OBS.
No, I know nothing about technology. I don't know how you're. Are you screen sharing it with me?
It will in a second. It's loading, deciding to freeze.
So the writer of that magazine, Benoit, who I've known for years, not a close friend or anything, but just because gay journalists travel in the same circles. I met him personally in New Jersey. I was doing a story about. I was profiling Tyler Oakley. And you remember him?
Who is that guy? I remember. What's the name?
He was like the first super huge YouTube celebrity before PewDiePie came along, and he was a gay guy. And I don't know what he's doing right now. He was very nice. I really liked him. Really nice guy. But he was very like social justice-y and left and whatever. Who cares? But I was profiling him,
can you see it now?
Oh yes, there it is. Oh yeah. Yeah. So there's the story. So I met Benoit. We've been Facebook friends forever, like blah blah blah. And then he interviewed me for this story almost 2 years ago. Okay, so that's how fast print media works. And you notice here, you're looking at it. So the lead features this guy. I guess he's maybe sort of handsome. I'm not a white guy, so I don't know, but I guess he's handsome. And he's the.
I need to see another picture, but I'm veering on the edge of no.
No, I mean he looks like a bro, I guess, right? He's a college student. This is a guy that they.
So he's one of the guys that gay guys would have sex with because he was straight acting, and then there would be no chemistry the next day.
Yeah, bingo, exactly. Yep. Yeah, that's him. So that's this guy, and he is the lead. He's the first thing in the story. I don't know if you can scroll down.
Okay, yeah. So feature for gay conservatives, the Trump era is the best and the worst of times.
Inside a terrible headline until you read the story and you know what they're trying to say.
Inside the emboldened, if hardly unified, ranks of the LGBT right.
All right, check this out. The first thing that the New York Times wants the world to know about gay conservatives is this quote. Hannity is a buffoon. That's right out of the bat. We are virtue signaling to the left. Right out of the gate, like we are virtue signaling to the left.
And it's like, wait.
Oh, yeah, they gotta loop that up. They're about to drop.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
But it is funny. It's like, so that's supposed to be some like commonly, like, who actually talks about Hannity?
No one, except this college student that no one's heard of. Nobody knows who he is. Benoit dug him up somewhere. You know, maybe cute.
There's a Craigslist ad.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I mean, you've got. I mean, I don't think I'm anything, but you've got me. You've got Milo. You've got you, Prince. You've got tons of gay conservatives who probably have really intellectual, smart things to say, who are super pro-Trump, and this exhausting, long, and extremely boring article is all about promoting the Never Trumpers, who kind of don't really exist among gay conservatives. They're there, but like not really, because gay conservatives fucking love Donald Trump.
Yeah, Trump brought the gays to the Republican Party.
Exactly, and the whole point of this story.
Think about all things gays, like, you know, like things that are like boisterous and loud and fucking neon lights and like shitty music and clubs with really big bass. Like everything about Trump just like wants like gays to like him.
Oh, and Milo called this out early on back in his Breitbart days in 2015 or 2016. He wrote a column saying like basically Trump is a drag queen, and it was like listing up why gay people love him. And
yeah, I think I kind of remember them.
Yeah.
I think I remember him at least talking about it.
Yeah. So this guy interviews me for 2 hours.
Now, should I scroll down to your part?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. You can if you want.
I want to see it.
You can. I mean, he quotes me saying the most innocuous, like flippant gay shit ever. I just like, oh, Trump's great. He's like a Kardashian. Gay people love him. Like that's all he quotes me saying. 2 hours. We were talking about NAFTA. We were talking about free trade. We were talking about Black Lives Matter. We were talking about all these big issues, and this is how he quotes me. So ironically, I texted him because he quotes me as saying, I don't think you see it there, but he says he actually says like, oh, Chadwick Moore is actually much more friendly and personable and introverted in real life than he portrays himself on Twitter, which I would agree with, because
that's true. That's true.
I'm a sensitive guy. I'm a nice guy. I'm a thoughtful guy, I think. And
you do post very provocative things on social media.
Hey, I just speak my mind. That's what I'm saying. But so he says that, and then like in the very next sentence, he says, "But I found it very difficult to believe he's sincere and not just performance art." When he says things like David Duke is a leftist, okay, which I explained to the fact checker. Emailed me, and the fact checker was like, "Did you actually say this?" I said, "Yeah, of course I did." And I'm like, "Why is David Duke even still alive? Like who cares?" And I sent him all these talking points about why I believe that.
Yeah.
Right. So then the story publishes, and this reporter Benoit, he's a nice guy. He's not a lefty, but he's sort of like an establishment Democrat. He's not like a far left guy.
Uh-huh.
And he published like, I found it very difficult to believe that he wasn't just performance art when he says things like David Duke is a leftist. So the other day when David Duke came out in support of Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, I saw that. And I've actually inserted. I'm really glad that you pointed that out, because I've used that in arguments. Because people literally still haven't gotten the memo that the Democrats are the party of the Klan.
Exactly. Yeah. So I texted that to Benoit, the writer of this story, and I said, wow. I sent him a kissy face. And like I highlighted like the quote he said about me, and I sent him the screen grab of the news article that David Duke had come out in support of Tulsi Gabbard, and sent him like a kissy face. And Benoit just went like, "Ha." To be fair, I'm not mad at Benoit. I think I'm not mad at this writer. I think it's a boring story, and he got it all wrong. To be fair, he texted me the other day, and he was like, "Oh, it's like something about like," he was like, "Oh, I had a fraudulent charge on my card from Chick-fil-A." And my bank called me, and he texted me and said, "The only thing that came to my mind is the only people I know who eat Chick-fil-A is Chadwick Moore." I was like, "Oh, that's sweet. That's cute." So I'm not mad. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's cute. It's cute. I'm not mad at him. I just think it's a stupid story. But I think that like you would expect from the New York Times, if the New York Times is gay, they're all about gay conservatives right now. They did a big story about Bill White and his husband Brian. They were lovely people. and they did this story, so all black conservatives, and it's like the narrative the media is taking is if they can't shame us out of existence, which obviously they can't, because I can't think of people who are more fierce fighters than gay conservatives for Trump. If they can't shame us out of existence, then they'll just try to promote the not Trump brand of it. You know what I mean? What they do in this story.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying, and that's what about the Lesbo log cabin leader that you're talking about.
Well, okay, this is not confirmed, but Sarah Longwell is her name. She's awful. They turned her into a star on this. I wrote a column about this.
Is she in a? Is there a picture of her?
I don't know. I don't think she's photographed. That guy, the guy that's smoking the cigar. I don't know his name. I've never heard him. Colton Buckley. Props to Benoit, actually, for profiling him. That was a really, really sweet part of the story, if you read it. Benoit went to Oklahoma, is that where he's from? And interviewed this guy and went out to some honky-tonk and was sort of interviewing these, what we call rednecks and say, would you support this gay guy? And they're like, well, I don't care if he's gay or not, whatever. That was really sweet part of the story. So props to Benoit for that. That was the nicest part of the story.
Wait, so that guy's not gay?
No, he is gay. This guy's gay.
Oh, okay.
He's running for office in Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
And so Benoit went out there and profiled him as a part of it.
So for the record, if you can't tell, this guy, if you're into white guys, would be cute.
That guy's hot. I mean, put a cowboy hat on anything, and I'm down. So
is I think that the racial dating preference thing is a very convenient out for not having to say out loud that you're not attracted to someone.
Hey, what?
But I'm not accusing you. I'm saying that's a good idea. Maybe I start using.
You want to make my panties drop? Put a Mexican in a cowboy hat. That's all you got to do.
I had a Cuban ex-boyfriend for 2 years. Was not complaining.
I don't think I've ever dated a white guy. No, I have dated 1 or 2 white guys. I've had a lot of boyfriends, and it's so funny because I saw after my best friend in the whole world. His name's Michael. I'll call him out. My best friend for probably about 10 years, who no longer speaks to me and whatever after the election. But I remember right after the election, I saw him like posting on Facebook, like calling me a racist. Like, oh, we knew Chadwick was a racist all along, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, you've met every single one of my boyfriends and not one of them has been white. Like, what are you talking about?
That's like the leveled up version of I got a black friend. It's like, I got a black friend and I sucked his dick.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? I love the left makes fun of the I have a black friend argument, but like literally that's kind of the definition of not being a racist.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
that's what pisses me off. I made an entire video. I don't remember exactly what it's called because it was a long while ago, but I was just called like just because you have a few black friends. I think in quotes, and then it was called something like just because you have a few black friends debunked. And basically I'm just like it was a poorly read video. It was like I did it when I wasn't in the mood to record a video, which is something that I got in the habit of doing, which I should never do. Only record when you're in the mood if you're a YouTuber. But the idea was, I think, fairly decent. It's just like, look, there's actually not really any better barometer for whether somebody's not bigoted. And the thing is, it's like when somebody says, nobody ever says I have a black friend. It's always like I have lots of black friends is what you actually hear. And they're like, oh, it doesn't matter. And I want to make a new video, and I forget exactly how I was going to phrase this. So I think I did actually write some of it down, which is, I think that the reason that leftists call everybody racist all the time is because, Chadwick and we've talked about this. We both actually went to school in black neighborhoods, and you grew up just kind of naturally not being racist because your school was more culturally integrated and largely based around the black culture. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, I grew up in black culture.
Yeah.
So it never even, my first kiss was a black girl, It was like, it just was never a thing. Race was never something I thought about that much.
Well, for me, it was actually a very, very big issue when I was growing up because although I did go to school in like
But you went to a nice school with a lot of black people.
kind of it's a strange thing.
Yeah,
I went to a school that was in one of the two black neighborhoods in Seattle that are kind of connected. Like they're kind of like a bottleneck sort of a like there's the Central District and then there's Rainier Beach, and there is a kind of a road that connects the two, and you can find black households all along the road, but it was really the residents were actually all living in the Central District or Rainier Beach.
Oh wait, can I virtue signal really quick?
What?
So my mother got my sister and I these like 23andMe DNA kits for Christmas. I'm not doing mine because that's deep state shit. I threw it away. But my sister did it. My sister's adopted. She's older than me. She's adopted and she's like 10 days old. My sister is 10% black, 10% West African. Yeah, I mean, and you can kind of see it. She's very dark complected and whatever. She's 10% black and 7% Native American and something. So anyway,
all right.
So I'm not a racist. My sister's black.
Okay, well, but
That's
okay,
great. We have our virtue quota met, so now we can keep.
There you go. Exactly. See, I had to put that out there.
But okay, anyhow, what I was saying though is that, like, for me, I and this is why I feel like I deserve to be able to wear the badge of like a non-racist person, which you know, in terms of bigotry, always those things are always a kind of a work in progress, and in that it's true that you do have to constantly check yourself and remind yourself when you might be making unfair judgments of any type of person, and you have to constantly be like sort of updating yourself. But for me, what it was that like I went to school in the Central District, and when I was although I went to a very integrated school in the second grade, and it didn't even occur to me that, you know, skin color really mattered very much. But then I went to the gifted program, which was in a black neighborhood, and the black students were actually a minority. In that one, it was about 75% white, 25% black, but they actually lived in the neighborhood and everybody else was bussed in. And they were very, very hostile to the white and Asian kids. Like they were just like, "What you looking at, white boy?" And and that attitude was really, really bad all through middle school. Because my middle school was about 80% black, 20% white and Asian, and because Seattle has like a massive amount of Asian people, like rivaling San Francisco, and so. It was this thing where it was just, I mean, you as a white kid, you just constantly lived in fear of like randomly being attacked in the hallway for no reason at all. You had to like always look at the ground, but make sure that you weren't going to bump into anybody, because if you looked at them, then they would, you know, see it as a threat or something. You know, it was a very hostile environment. But it was only until I got into high school that they started sort of, I was in some sort of like, I guess, good faith, non-Marxist versions of legitimate social justice type classes. Like we didn't have a undoing whiteness seminar, but what we did have was a prejudice class. It was about, but everybody was supposed to sit around for a semester talking about their own prejudices and then hearing about other kids' prejudices. And so we got to hear, you know, I was out of the closet. So I talked about, you know, things that I thought other gay guys were like, and people were like, "Oh, so even within the gay community, you have stereotypes of what you expect all other gay guys to be like." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, it's actually really weird to be a gay teenager." And they're like, "I didn't even think about that." And then black kids are talking about what it's like for them to be the only black guy at a Target in a white suburb or something. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, okay. So we actually started to really learn about these things. And then I started to really make peace with why the black kids had been so hostile in elementary school and middle school. And I was like, well, it actually makes perfect sense. Like we were in this gifted program that got probably more funding than the rest of the school combined. And most of the kids were stuck up assholes to the black kids. And I mean, I'm not going to say that the black kids acted well overall. Some of them were perfectly nice and I was friends with them. But even some of the nice ones were totally treated rudely by the advanced placement program kids. Like I had a few friends that were Black that were in the not super gifted program, and some of the white kids I knew like had no concept of the fact that I was legitimately friends with this kid, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, Charles is actually nice. Like, and they just like couldn't even briefly warm up to the possibility of being his friend, and to the point where within 10 minutes, Charles was like, fuck you, white boy, you know? And then it was like, okay, well that didn't work. But, so then I started to appreciate, you know, things. I had a dynamic, and then from that point onward, I was always able to, like, if when you first make friends, and this is something that if you're really not racist, when you first make friends with and get to know a Black person well, you know, like to the point where they're hanging out with you in your house alone, or maybe there's like 2 Black people in you or something like that, they will bring up the race issue. Like they will want to talk about it. It's just how Black people learn to trust white people. And I mean, there's ways that people do it in a creepy social justice way where they expect you to like, but there's also just the rational conversation. And if you can tell them a story like I just kind of told, then they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, it sounds cool. You sound cool, you know, and then they'll start warming up to you. And then it's like you have a bunch of friends like that, and they learn to generally accept that you're not racist. Well, so I am almost done, and then I will give you the floor. What I have noticed is that I believe that the dramatic majority of leftists have never had any even remotely comparable experience to what I just described. And they don't have Black friends because of the fact that they did not have that type of experience, they haven't been able to truly make the real connection with Black people. Because Black people legit just don't straight up trust white people unless the white person can make it clear to them that they have thought explicitly about the Black experience. And or is like very comfortable around Black people. Like that's something that, and most white people kind of aren't. Most white people are kind of feel awkward around Black people, and Black people can tell. They pick up on that. And so when white progressives are trying to accuse everybody of being racist, and then even if you say, well, I actually have a whole bunch of Black friends and they still want to call you a racist, I think what it really is that they are just trying to play hot potato and make sure that they are not holding the racism potato at any given moment, because they know that they don't have any good explanation for why they are allegedly not racist. So if anybody ever forces them into the, oh yeah, well, so I have a way of proving that I'm not racist. I had Black bandmates. I can show you photos of a release that we did, you know, that's a pretty good, you know, way of proving it for me, but they don't have that shit. And so what they do instead is call other people racist, hoping nobody calls them racist because they were so busy calling other people racist that maybe no one will ever know.
Yeah, when a conservative says I have Black friends, it means I've got people who happen to be Black who I enjoy being around and I respect them. When liberals say, when liberals have Black friends, it's fucking tokenism, and they seek them out. You know, it's like. I
have literally been with an SJW girl who's like, I think in Antifa, and she was at a show that she had played, and this girl was the only Black member of this band, and she was a very good guitar player, good singer, and the friend actually literally said to her within about 10 minutes of her set being over, being like, oh my God, you should really come perform in Olympia. We're looking for people of color that do rock music. It would be really cool. And we'd look, and I was just like, actually they want to book you because you're a really good band. And she smiled and was like so happy that I said it. It was so clear that she was like, oh, thank you. Thanks. You want me because I'm Black. Okay.
Here's the thing. And I had a similar experience to you growing up in school, especially in middle school, where, except I didn't go to nice school. I went to a ghetto school. Like it was not nice. It was not a nice public school, and largely Black. And as you said before, and like I was bullied constantly by Black people, like being like, oh, whatever, white boy, whatever. But I never even thought of it as like a race issue. It was just like, oh, these guys are jerks, And actually, I had one in middle school, I had one constant bully who was a black gay guy who would like just like go out of his way to try to intimidate me, whatever, probably because he thought I was cute. And
Did you know first? Like, was he out?
oh, he's out now.
Ah,
He came out after high school, but even then you knew because he was very very like aggressively gay, and but he was very also very like large, and like you just knew he was gay. He was very sort of like whatever. But yeah, you just knew he was gay. I knew he was gay at the time, but he was very large and very intimidating, and yeah, he'd bully me. And actually, we became friends after high school. But I don't talk to him anymore. But for when I was in college, I hung out with him a few times. I went back to my hometown and would hang out with him and go to gay bars. No, I was bullied, but I never like it didn't make me like, oh, I hate black people or something. You know, it was like it just maybe I think you're right because like if you grow up in those circumstances and you just don't really think about race that much, it just you don't look at people for their skin color. You just look at people whether or not they're good or bad.
Yeah.
So anyone who bullied me, you just think like, oh, that person's just an asshole. They're a bully, whatever.
well, the second grade school that I went to was actually integrated. Everybody was the same, program, and there were definitely black bullies, and I thought of them as bullies, but it. And maybe they did call me white boy, but I didn't think of it like that. Yeah. But then when I went into the new environment where it was like all of the kids in the regular program were black and then all of the kids in the gifted program were white and Asian, they hated us so bad, and it was completely biracial lines all the time. It was so clear.
But that's leftism, right? This where I was growing up and going to school was not a lefty environment. But
yeah, it was like a forced integration thing.
Yeah, I was in more like working class. Obviously, they're like rich kids in school, whatever. But it was way more working class, which is the sort of people I relate to. It's like you go down south, right, where I'm from, and everyone likes to say, like, "Oh, Southerners are racist, or Republican." You go down south, and any small town you go into, people are just so real about race, and nobody really cares. Yeah, they might say things like, "Oh, those blacks down there, blah blah." But it's not like from a hateful way. It's just like, and it's sort of like we all live together perspective. It's not like when you get to big cities like in the north and like in New York, where it's suddenly trying to tokenize people and use them for political gains and so big narratives. I mean, look, my neighborhood right now,
or say that someone else isn't allowed to for some reason, even though they do it all the time.
Yeah, well, I lived in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn before it was white. And I was the only white person on the train. I was the only white person on the block. And I remember I would always, I'd be walking home and there'd be like teenagers always hanging out in the stoops or whatever and be like, hey, snowflake, hey, white girl, what's up? I thought it was kind of cute and funny. And I'd be like, hey, what's up? But I went to, there's a soul food restaurant on the corner where I lived that opened up and I went there. I remember the hatred I got from the guy behind the counter, like ordering soul food. Just like I could just feel it like seething, like this white guy in my neighborhood, the whites are taking over. And in the same respect, and you're not allowed to talk about that. In the same respect, I'm not a big fan of gentrification. I hate that Bed-Stuy's now all white hipsters because they're awful. But
you should have told him that if we just get rid of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, then he could just refuse service to white people.
Well, there you go. But still, it's even where I live now. I live in Brooklyn, a very gentrified, hipster neighborhood. But the part of my neighborhood is still very much, thank God, it's still very much. There's a lot of Puerto Rican families and a lot of black families who still live here, haven't been pushed out yet. And I go to my corner store, twice a day for whatever, and it's all these like black people in the projects hanging out there all the time. I could have better conversations with them about Trump than any white liberal. It's and they might not be they hate him, whatever. But if I explain my position, they're like, yeah, I get it. And then if you try to have a conversation with a white, educated, wealthy liberal who lives in the neighborhood, they're like shrieking and crying and screaming.
Yeah,
they'll
shriek and cry if I even say that I have a lot of friends that are Trump supporters. They'll be like, "Oh my God!
Yeah, how dare you? Yeah,
how absolutely dare you?
Yeah, yep. How dare you even talk to those people? They're subhuman. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole difference. Is like we I don't view liberals. I think lefties. I think their ideology is evil. I understand what they're saying because obviously, like you, Prince, spent my entire life around them. So I get them. I get why they believe what they believe. I just think they're wrong, and they do not give us the same courtesy because they believe we are irredeemably evil.
Well, and they also think that you're irredeemably stupid and that you don't have any actual independent thought and that everything in your head is manipulation. It's all fake Fox News, which they have stopped watching, and so they don't even know what's on Fox News. And I mean, they don't understand that YouTube's kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I saw Shep Smith at a gay bar last night. But speaking of Fox News, their worst host. No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, and well, you nailed that. They're like, oh, you only believe Fox News. I don't actually know anyone who watches Fox News except for Tucker Carlson. They watch Tucker. That's it.
I'll watch the clips.
Same here.
I watch the clips that show up on YouTube if it's something like a story that I want to see, but it's not like I sit around watching waiting to see what comes on Fox.
Oh, 8 o'clock, time to turn on Fox News while you eat dinner. Yeah, exactly.
I just like to keep a pulse on the boomers. That's all. That's all it's for. It's boomer pulse.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So I think that we should be wrapping this up because I'd like people to watch this on the playback. But I did want to say one more closing thing about the gentrifications and the restaurants and the walking through. I wanted to say the one black person that I currently talk to all the time, this is going to surprise nobody who likes to tune in for the Gaytriarchy streams, is somebody that I play Overwatch with. And he's a very good Overwatch friend of mine, which means I've talked to him multiple times a week for about a year and a half, for many hours, very often. And not only is he a black guy, I would say he's culturally liberal just because he was born and raised in Seattle, now lives in Tacoma, which is kind of like the sort of like budget Seattle that has more black people. But he also used to be experiment with homosexuality when he was younger. And he was also, I think he currently actually can't vote because he got a conviction of something when he was older. But it's interesting to talk to him about politics because he kind of gives no fucks in the way that you're sort of describing. Like he's definitely not a Republican or anything. But from what it sounds like with him, he felt I don't want to put words into his mouth. I would love for him to correct me. And I've actually asked him about being on Gaytriarchy, and it'll be cool if he came. He was interested, but it sounded kind of like he is just sick of the Democrats trying to talk about they're going to help poor people and black people because he has never seen it, is what it sounds like from him.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to end this. I'd like to talk with you guys a little bit more in private because I have a few things to say. And thank you everybody for showing up. I think that this was a fun stream.
It was really fun. Thank you so much. And again, apologies for last week.
It's cool. See you guys.
All right, good night.